On this episode of the DTVC podcast, Jeanette Ward from Mundane Adventures of a Fangirl is on, and we're going to be looking at Honor and Glory, the Cynthia Rothrock, Donna Jason classic. Actually, Godfrey Ho classic as well. But actually, before we do that, we're going to be talking about kind of the current state of comic book movies. We had originally planned to do Fantastic Four First Steps as the first half of the episode, kind of how we did Superman and then Fantastic Four 94 with Freddie Young a couple weeks back. But what happened was that Jeanette and I discovered that we were both on the same LAMBcast episode talking about Fantastic Four First Steps. So that is episode 778 for LAMBcast. So you can check that out as well. But what we did is kind of just following up because, the last time she was on, we talked about Thunderbolts. We kind of just did an overall state of where the comic book movie genre is at this point. Talked about a few different things like DC and the Arrowverse and sort of the too much content versus too little content, all of that kind of stuff. So it was a really great conversation. And then when we get in on Honor and Glory, I think of the three movies that Jeanette and I have discussed so far, Bridge of Dragons, American Ninja 4, now this one, Honor and Glory, I think Honor and Glory is the most fun that we've had watching one of these movies. So it's a really great conversation. Then next week, Todd Liebenow from Forgotten Filmcast is back on. We'll be looking at Malibu Express, the Sedaris film that in a way started it all. So we'll have that was another really fun conversation. But we need to talk Sedaris with Todd, so this was a really great one. Also, we kind of started that one talking kind of about, sort of the genre of the decade of the 80s and sort of how media and things like that were changing as we get into that Malibu Express, because it's an interesting movie for that as well. So another really great conversation there. And then in 2 weeks, Ty from Comeuppance is on for his monthly hit. We're going to be continuing our look at the Philippi Factory, only this is going to be just two Cam Gigande movies. We're going to look at Mafia Wars, which also has, is it Tom Welling, the guy who played Clark Kent on Smallville? And then I think it's 72 hours. It's like some amount of hours is the second Cam Gigande one. So I'm probably already really making them sound like great ones here based on just what I've been saying here. But anyway, that's coming up in 2 weeks' time. So check that out as well. And then DTVC Extra, I was thinking about doing Marvel Phase 4. I still have to watch the two TV special kind of thing. So there's Werewolf at Night and then the Christmas special, Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special. So those are the last two things. I forgot that I still had to do those. I'm not doing the animated one, so I'm not doing What If, and I think, for Phase 5, I won't do like X-Men 97 or whatever. Those will kind of be for their own thing if I ever do them. But even just doing the TV shows and now TV specials and then the movies, it's a lot with these phases. So, if I ever want to do Phase 5, I think it's still just TV shows. I've seen all the movies, but I think for Phase 5, it's like, Secret Invasion, the second season of Loki, and Agatha All Along, I think, are the ones I still have to watch. Oh, and then Ironheart, right? Ironheart's the new one. Did you catch the mass accent there? Ironheart? Ironheart, yeah. So Ironheart's one I still got to do as well. Anyway, kid, we'll get to that one later on. So, but anyway, so we might have a DTVC Extra coming. Just give you a heads up on that. Keep an eye out for that. Then the YouTube channel, you may notice that we haven't really posted anything other than the podcast since that Seagal one. So you may know, right, that the King of the Kickboxers one, that's on our Facebook page because that one was blocked completely. So I was thinking about maybe doing another Seagal, like maybe doing The Foreigner, because there's some really great scenes in that. Like there's that train station bathroom scene where the guy blows up with the bomb and, Seagal dives out the window. And then there's another fight scene where he throws a CD at a guy in the stomach and it blows up his stomach, which is really great. And he's like, boy, I sure love a barbecue. So I thought I would do those. I thought that would be a lot of fun to do those. And then discovered that, no, there's some sort of I think it's like digital rights management is what they call it, DRM protection on Tubi for some movies. So not every movie has this DRM thing, but it's also the thing that causes issues when I try to get screenshots for the blog. Essentially, when you go to take a screen grab or you record on OBS, it just comes out as a blank screen. Now, my old computer can still get screen grabs. So essentially, I switched to my old computer to get the screen grabs. I also still use my old computer for writing my novels because my old novels that I'm still kind of working on there, they have the formatting. When I tried to move them over to new versions of Word, the formatting was off. They just look like a mess. So I still use the old computer for a few things, but that's one of them is I have to get screen grabs on there. But it's weird with Tubi because not everything is covered by that DRM thing. But for whatever reason, The Foreigner is. I guess maybe because it's a Sony movie, whereas like Out for a Kill, I guess I don't even know if I got Out for a Kill on Tubi or it might have been on Fossum or something like that. But either way, so I'm like I couldn't do it. So now I've got to figure out if I'm going to do something else. So all that to say, it's probably going to be a little bit more of a delay before I get another video up on the YouTube channel, but hopefully we will. I mean, yes, the podcasts are still going to be on there, but I mean, that Seagal one is still doing pretty well, so it would be nice to maybe do another Seagal one. So, we'll see what happens there. And then in terms of the site, we did Bedroom Eyes last week. So Bedroom Eyes was a fun one, Bedroom Eyes 2, which was one that we did on a podcast episode with John Cross from After Movie Diner PM Entertainment Podcast. We did both Bedroom Eyes, that one. We did Bedroom Eyes 1 and 2. So I just did part 2 because that's the one that has Wings Hauser in it. I thought that was important to get more Wings up on the site. I think next week we're going to maybe do Scott Adkins in Accident Man Hitman's Holiday. I think that might be a fun one to cover there. That was also a podcast episode. We did that with Will Slater from Exploding Helicopter. Remember, he was on and we did an Adkins double feature in a recent episode. So that's probably what we'll have for this weekend, but we'll see what happens there. And then, yours truly has also been busy on other people's podcast. I was on, speaking of Will from Exploding Helicopter, I was on there recently. We talked about Bigfoot, the Asylum film that has Barry Williams and Danny Bonaducci. So that came out on Friday, August 1st. That's his August episode. So definitely check that out. You should be subscribed to the Exploding Helicopter podcast. Then John Cross from After Movie Diner, we were on his podcast and we talked about, he talked about Diablo. I haven't seen Diablo yet. I've got to see that. Hopefully it'll soon be on a cheaper streamer. One of the free streamers that I subscribe to is included in one of those instead of $5.99, which is what it is now. But he talked about Diablo, and then we talked about A Working Man, the Jason Statham movie, and then Black Creek, the new Cynthia Rothrock one. So that's a new episode of the After Movie Diner. And then, the LAMBcast. I was on the LAMBcast recently where we talked about Fantastic Four First Steps. I just mentioned that earlier in the episode. So that's available now as well. So I've been on other people's podcasts in addition to my own. I did record one other one with John for After Movie Diner, so that one should be coming out soon as well. So keep an eye out for that too. I guess, is that everything? Did we catch up on everything? I can't remember. I thought if I had something else to talk about, but I think we may have caught it all up. Now, my books, the one thing I wanted to mention about my books, I think it was not the recent episode of After Movie Diner that was published, but the one that we did after that, where John mentioned that frequent listener of his podcast, Andy Lund, has been reading my novels and really enjoying them. So they're good. People like them. So if you're looking for something to read that people have read and enjoy, my novels are there. They're available for you. The link is in the podcast description. My newest book, Nadia and Aiden, that's available right now. That's a shorter read than some of the other stuff. I use a kind of an experimental dual first-person narration between the two twins, Nadia and Aiden. But the one review was a 5-star review. So, somebody liked it. They enjoyed it. So the books are there. They're good. People are enjoying them. And I always appreciate if somebody wants to pick one up. That always is a great thing for me. So, and if you do pick one up, let me know. I can give you a shout out on the podcast here as well. All right, we're almost 8 minutes in, so why don't we call it good here? We'll have John Cross from Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures playing our theme song, and then when we come back, Jeanette Ward from Mundane Adventures of a Fangirl is on, and we'll be talking about Marvel first, or comic book movies first, and then Honor and Glory. DTVC podcast. As always, this is Matt here, and I'm joined by very special guest, Jeanette Ward from Mundane Adventures of a Fangirl. Welcome back, Jeanette.
Hey, happy to be here.
All right, and so the funny thing is, we had originally when Jeanette was last on, we did American Ninja 4, and we were talking about what were some ideas we might do for our next episode, and we thought, well, the episode was going to be sometime after Fantastic Four First Steps come out, so we thought maybe we'd do like we did the previous, for American Ninja 4, where we did Thunderbolts for the first half and then American Ninja 4 for the second half. We thought we'd do the same thing. We'll do Fantastic Four and then Honor and Glory. And then we both discovered when we got the email from Richard Kirkham telling us, giving us the details for the Fantastic Four episode of the LAMBcast, that we were both on that episode. So,
Yes.
yeah, so we decided we're going to do kind of just an overall pulse of where things are at with comic book movies now. But if you want to hear us talk about that, it's LAMBcast episode 778. That's where we talk about the Fantastic Four first steps. And then also, Jeanette was on the episode before that, 777, which was a fantastic conversation on Superman as well. So check that one out too.
Yes, all of the movie that is Superman.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, it was great. Also, Todd Liebenow, who's been on this podcast before, also was on that episode with you. So yeah, that was a really fun one. We talked about. I had Freddie Young from Full Moon Reviews, who also is a huge comic book movie fan. He was on. We did first half on Superman, second half on Fantastic Four '94, which was where Richard was talking about listening to that. So, but yeah, I guess why don't we I guess the number one question is, now all four of these comic book movies have come out this year. How are you feeling about sort of the state of where things are at with comic book movies?
What I enjoyed about this year, and I think to confirm, we're talking about the same movies.
Yes.
Captain America: Brave New World.
Oh, yes.
Thunderbolts, Superman, and now Fantastic Four. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, those are the four. Yep.
Yeah, and I like how they kind of all fit together as a progression in a weird way. Thunderbolts was very much continuing what I felt was the overarching thing of the previous phase of the MCU, just very clearly, and I think it had to be following the events of Avengers: Endgame. Everything was bad, and it just felt. A lot of the movies immediately after that movie, and a lot of movies coming, in the following phase, and there was the multiverse, or whatever they wanted to call it, but it was a lot of just dealing with most of the movies. Like, grief was the villain, or depression was the villain, or in the case of Thunderbolts, unprocessed trauma was the villain. I liked that. It added layers to these characters. It made them human. It made them relatable. It didn't always make for the most fun movies, but I think there was enough peppered in, like, oh man, the Ms. Marvel TV show, like, what a breath of fresh air that show was. Delightful. So I liked that Thunderbolts continued that, and you started to see a ray of hope at the end of that. Like, those characters who essentially were a bunch of rejects, a bunch of discarded people, a bunch of these folks are never going to amount to anything, who were all dealing with their own unprocessed trauma, got together, figured out what they needed to do to process and move on, was really find their own community, find their family, find their group, find where they belong, find other people like them, go through it together. I loved Thunderbolts so much. I thought it was beautifully done. Captain America: Brave New World had a similar theme in that, dealing with the idea of, if someone has an idea of you, can you change? If you've done terrible things in your past, are you able to evolve and grow? And it's such an interesting idea, especially now. We live in, and I hate to use the phrase air quotes, cancel culture, but the idea is, and when we were, forgive me for looping us into the same age bracket here, Matt, but I know I'm Gen X. I'm
Yes.
thinking you are as well.
Yes, on the cusp, right? Right at the edge.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
When we were younger, if a celebrity made a mistake, okay, they made a mistake. It might not be caught. If it was caught, it might be in a tabloid. They could probably move on from it. Let's not forget, like, when I was younger, Robert Downey Jr. was no one wanted to touch that dude. He was toxic beyond all belief. But in this day and age, people could recover from that because it was, the eyeballs weren't as, number one, attentive, number two, all present, number three, permanently living in the internet, which wasn't a thing at the time. And now you get to this point where everyone sees what you do all the time. I can't imagine. I think about this all the time. Like, kids in high school now could never. It's impossible. I don't know how they deal with it. But on exponential level of that observation, celebrities, like, God forbid you make any kind of mistake at any time. And on the one hand, it's good. Like, please don't try to hide your racism, your sexism, your homophobia. I'd rather we find that out, and that I can choose not to support you with my dollars. You know what I mean? But on the flip side, if you make an honest mistake, or you're young and stupid, right? And not something that is poisonous or hateful, but just a mistake. And it's caught. I think that that kind of layers into this. Do you have the ability to grow and change? That's a long way of saying in Captain America Brave New World, it deals with Thunderbolt Ross, who up to that point in the MCU had been the bad guy. Went after the Hulk in the first Hulk movie. Went after him so hard he changed Ed Norton into Mark Ruffalo. That's how hard he was pursuing him. And thank God he did. Not going to lie to you. Good choice there.
Yes.
But then some of the other movies, where he's constantly, what if the government had some oversight on the Avengers, which I love. Winter Soldier is my favorite MCU movie. I think we talked about that. But Civil War is right up there as well. It's so well done because the conversations matter.
Yes.
Like, well, what if we need to go somewhere and they don't let us? And what if they send us somewhere we don't want to be? And the discussion of, like, should the government be in charge of these people who are essentially heroes? We're going out to do good in the world. Should the government have a say in where we... But Ross was behind all that. His hatred and his motivation was this interweaving thread that kept through, like, the Black Widow flashbackness of that movie, which I think is great and maybe a little underrated. And then through a couple of shows and just this vibe. And so Captain America Brave New World kind of tackled the idea of, okay, so he's had a heart attack. He's seen what's happened in the world. He lived through the disappearance of half the population. He wants to change. In that movie, he says repeatedly in the beginning of the movie, he wants to change so bad he's now Harrison Ford, which admittedly William Hurt died, not his fault.
Right.
But a smooth transition there. I know what I was before. I want to change. But can the weight of your past, can the weight of his past allow people to see that and believe it? And over the course of that movie, and there's a lot of other stuff that happens in that movie, and yeah, it suffered from some reboots or reshoots and things like that, and shifting the plot around, et cetera, et cetera. But at its core is this idea that Ross wants to change, but is his past too much to allow, so that people can allow him to change and evolve? And I think it's an interesting question when you apply it to, if someone has made a huge mistake in the past and they genuinely want to change, can you take them at face value when they say that? Do they have to prove it? What do they have to do to prove it? How much work do they have to do? Is it based on, can a million good deeds outweigh a handful of bad deeds? And so I really liked that play in that movie. And I think due to some of the other surrounding hoopla, maybe that theme didn't get as appreciated as much as it should have when that movie came out. But boy, I really loved it. I loved Thunderbolt so much. I loved Brave New World. I think I loved it more than a lot of other people did. Number one, Anthony Mackie is absolutely a delight. That dude is the best. Living his best life, doing what he can do, does charity work in New Orleans, like low key, I'm going to go and build houses for these people because I can. Just such quality work. Coming out of Juilliard, can do both super silly, fun stuff. Like, I don't know if you've watched Twisted Metal at all, but wow,
I haven't yet. I saw an ad for it. I think it was on IMDb. So I'm because the only thing I'd really seen Mackie in before the MCU movies was He Hate Me, which is probably lower down the list on. I mean, I liked him in it, but I think for a Spike Lee movie, it's maybe not one of my favorites of his. But I knew he was good. But I mean, when he first shows up in Winter Soldier, and he's the way his chemistry with Chris Evans and just everything that he does there, it's just I was hooked. I was like, give me more Mackie.
Sucks the air out of the room and then breathes it all back in a fresh way.
Yeah,
which I think at that point the MCU kind of needed. Like, let's breathe some fresh air in, and understood the assignment, came in, showed up, brought this light and this joy. Falcon and Winter Soldier, still one of my favorite series that they've done. His chemistry with Sebastian Stan, and the idea that whole show was born out of the press tour for Winter Soldier, where they were like, wow, Sebastian Stan does not talk. This man is so introverted. He's got to do press for this. What can we do? Wow, Anthony Mackie does not shut up. Put them together. Send them out it. The chemistry out of that press tour, and if you've never watched some of the interview clips of the two of them together, it's brilliant because Mackie gives Stan the permission to loosen up and to allow people in, and the two of them together are just fabulous. And if you want a whole vibe of that, the scene in Civil War, the two of them in the Volkswagen.
Yes.
That's it. That's the whole chemistry right there. And then it develops into this friendship, and the show is great, and the two of them are beautiful together. So I think that my biggest like I said, love Thunderbolts, love Brave New World. My biggest sadness of both of them is that almost wish they were one movie, or that the two of them were in both movies together more. I only want the two of them together. I don't want them separately. So, but yes, loved both of those. I think it, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I think the MCU suffers from it built on such a perfect trajectory,
Yes.
starting with Iron Man, ending with Endgame, of build, 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 culminate, essentially finish. But then how do you recover? And so when you have a smaller movie where it's like, no, we're not dealing with saving the world, we're dealing with a small problem here in New York. How do you, when the expectation of the audience is like, but Avengers, and you're like, no, this is just a Thunderbolts movie. They're just dealing with one little thing. I like that. I like, give me a tight little story, please. Give me a 90-minute tight little story. You don't need to waste time on this and that and the other thing. I love that. So I think sometimes the weight of expectations, the burden of your own greatness for the MCU kind of plays into some of the reception, but I liked both of them. But let me pause before I get to Superman. What your thoughts on those first two?
No, I agree. I mean, first of all, Thunderbolts, I think out of the 4 that have come out this year, it was my favorite of those. And I think it's a shame that it didn't do as well, because I think especially Florence Pugh's performance,
Yes.
it's just beautiful. And there's that show from the 70s that I think I talked about actually when on the LAMBcast episode we did last week, a show called Mannix with
Yep.
this actor Mike Connors played Joe Mannix, and Mike Connors said about his character that he felt it was an inaccurate representation because his character went through a lot of trauma. I mean, he's getting shot at, he's getting beat up, there's a lot of, every episode has violence in it, and he's like, his character would be shot and end up in the hospital and then just be back the next week like nothing happened.
Yes.
And the same thing kind of happens in these MCU movies where it's like, okay, what does it take to make a Black Widow, right? What does a Black Widow have to go through? And it's like, okay, well, yeah, Yelena Belova or Black Widow, they're really cool, right? They're great to watch. You want to watch them fight, and they're in their leather outfits and they're doing sweep moves and jumping down on
and cool
poses, right, using batons and beating people up. But there's something that has to create that, and delving into what creates that is something that a movie like that generally isn't going to want to do, right? That's not something that they're going to want to bother with,
right?
But when you do it and you do it well, I think it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, maybe like, we the box office is one thing, but the critics scores for Thunderbolts and the audience scores, the people who did see the movie came out and gave it an A- on the cinema score rating. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if maybe too, like you said, they've kept building this thing, right, where it's like, it sort of keeps building on itself and everything needs to be bigger. If they can go back to a thing where it's like, what if, a movie like Thunderbolts, maybe it in itself, it doesn't do huge numbers, but maybe it brings a new audience, maybe it brings a different audience. Kind of the same way, like, Captain America First Avenger brought in a lot of kind of younger millennials, that age group between like late 80s, early 90s, who's, they're kind of, their whole aesthetic was that the GI coming back from World War II kissing the woman, that famous iconic picture, you go on Tumblr and they all had that as their profile picture and all this stuff. And then suddenly Captain America First Avenger essentially makes a comic book movie based off that aesthetic. And all of them were hooked. They were all in, and they really were the kind of the foundation. Us comic book fans are going to watch these movies no matter what. But
right,
these were non-comic book fans that came in, and I wonder, like Gen Z is very focused on mental health, and I wonder if this is the kind of thing that can speak to them. And so maybe they didn't come out, because Captain America First Avenger also didn't do as well in the box office. I think it made just barely its money back or something like that. But it built something, and so maybe there's this younger cohort, this Gen Z cohort, which hasn't been coming out to the Marvel movies. They don't care about them.
They also don't go to the theater.
Right.
To be fair,
exactly.
I feel like Brave New World really did well once it hit Disney Plus, and as soon as Thunderbolts does too, I think it will as well.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great point too. And so I wonder, success might have to be something different. Now, you could still have the big blockbuster that pulls in over $1 billion. I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine did it. Spider-Man. No Way Home did it. So you still have those, but and maybe that means that a Thunderbolts can't have, maybe even $180 million is too high of a budget. Maybe it needs to be a smaller budget or something like that. But or eventually it can be a bigger budget. Eventually there's a Thunderbolts movie that can make $1 billion. And yeah, maybe like you said with Gen Z not going to this theater, that maybe that has to be a whole new thing. Like maybe we have to sell them on the theater experience and explain to them why it's important.
Isn't it interesting? Like I think you really hit the nail on the head. Like the definition of success almost has to change, and
Yeah.
it's so crazy because the definition of success for the movie industry has kind of been the same since it started, and really it's dollars, box
Yes.
office dollars, merchandising tie-ins, etc. Dollars. And because of the way consumerism has changed of this industry, really we almost need a shift, and we're not quite there yet, but eventually we'll get there. Shift of like studio heads.
Yeah.
Right now it's still all old white guys who are
Right.
air quotes 50s guys,
Yeah.
with the same mentality, the same ideas, the same like, oh, this makes money, this is what we're doing. Well, what about a new idea? No, this makes money, this is what we're doing.
Right.
So it's going to take an entire generational shift to get out of that. But once we do, if we can get someone in place who understands that the success is maybe not necessarily the dollars, which again, probably not the best business model, but to find a way around that and understand that maybe success can be defined by impact, by who's talking about it, how people feel about it. It's hard, right? Because it's not a traditional definition, but I think it's almost more important. So I don't know how we reach that point. It might not be feasible because you have to make money to keep making them. So I don't know, but yeah, there is a part of that where, as you said, how do you define success, especially for as the way people consume these changes?
Well, and maybe it's dollars is still the thing, but thinking back to that, again, thinking back to Captain America: First Avenger, that didn't do as well, but then the next movie is Avengers, and that one is like over $1 billion, and kind of sent shockwaves through the whole comic book movie. Like DC at that point, DC was like, well, nobody can touch us with our Batman movies, right? We've got this whole thing
Right.
locked, and suddenly they were like, oh, I guess we need to start putting our characters together, right? Like,
Yeah, see, Avengers did so well that it caused DC to make all the wrong decisions.
right, exactly. And I think the other thing is that Kevin Feige, I think in the past he was, part of it I think was the he was almost like a victim of his own success, maybe. And he could afford to have a movie like, even like, say, Ant-Man, that only made like 400, like he could afford to have a movie not do as big, like maybe just barely make its budget back, if the idea was it was growing a character that was going to be in something else later.
Something else, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If it was all of the puzzle pieces inevitably fit together, and
Yeah.
and really Kevin Feige's brain was the only one that really saw the end vision, and I think that made a huge difference as well, having that singular vision.
Yeah.
So that yes, if you have, and I love Ant-Man, but if you have something like, okay, well maybe this won't be for everyone. Guardians of the Galaxy,
Right.
maybe this won't be for everybody, but I know where it fits in the larger overall picture. I know how to hire the right people to make this, because tonally this has to be completely different than Captain America: First Avenger.
Yes.
So I need to have someone on hand who can do that. But they also need to understand they have to play within this box, and the box has to make sense with the larger overall vision. And that type of management, where you provide people the freedom they need to operate within specific guidelines, I think a lot of people can't handle that. And Feige made all the right decisions in putting the right people in the right places. And I think DC again maybe saw that and then made the wrong decisions. It didn't see the process, only saw the result. I'm not sure.
Well, and maybe this is a good place to transition into Superman, because
Yep.
one of the things when you were talking about Superman on the LAMBcast episode of
Mhm.
777, you brought up the Arrowverse, which is something that
Yes.
nobody else on that episode had really had really seen it. I always thought that the Arrowverse, one of the things that the Arrowverse, it was almost like the opposite of the MCU, where the TV shows became too much because they were all interconnected and people felt like they had to watch all the TV shows. With the Arrowverse, it was like you're getting all of these Arrowverse fans, in particular the Flash. That was like the biggest one that I think
Yep.
really hurt the MCU, or sorry, the DC EU, because I know for me, when I first saw Justice League, I was like, well, where's Grant Gustin? That's my
Mhm.
Flash. That's the Flash that I was looking for. And then, of course, Ezra Miller had his his legal issues as well, which I think that's another piece of it. Like you were talking about the cancel culture thing.
Yeah.
Is that if somebody is contrite and they accept responsibility and take responsibility for things that they've done, then we maybe give them a second chance after a period of time. Whereas
Yes.
Ezra Miller, all of his stuff was out there. It was bad. It wasn't resolved, and it was like
He
DC
also
was hoping
never
to.
seemed
Yeah,
contrite. I'm sorry, they never seemed contrite, and they never
no,
seemed to apologize.
right,
Often they just seemed to double down. Like,
right.
it was weird, so
Yes.
weird.
Yes. Not only did they double down, but they were like, DC was hoping that it would all get swept under the rug, or like that
Yes.
nobody was paying attention. And I think there might have been a period in the past where, if someone like an Ezra Miller who was doing all the stuff that they were doing, that maybe people would have just been like, I'm just going to watch the movie, or this whole concept of separate the art from the artist.
Which is so hard. Yeah.
Right. It's kind of a loaded term because it depends on what the artist is doing.
Yes, that's fair.
And I think, again, like you said with Ezra Miller, like that stuff was out there and it was big. And I think also younger audiences in particular really knew what was going on. I think older audiences,
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure of what the whole situation was. I just knew there was some shady stuff.
Right, exactly. I'm the same way. And then at the same time, you've got Grant Gustin, who's just fantastic.
Just a quality dude, just being out there being quality.
Right. And so I think that DC didn't really count on the fact that that was going to hurt them, that people weren't going to go see that Flash movie.
Yeah, it was so, you bring up such a great point. I think the Arrowverse in particular was launched by, number one, a group of people who had watched all of Smallville,
Yes.
understood what was possible on a week-to-week basis, and then launched Arrow, let's take a third-tier character. So they watched all of Smallville, and I think it was Greg Berlanti, right?
Yeah.
Watched all of Smallville, understand what's happening. Watched all the MCU, get how you can take, all right, let's start with this character. Let's build around this character. If you go back and watch the premiere episode of Arrow, Stephen Amell understood the assignment from day one.
He did.
That character is very, and tough, right? Because I think, like me, I'm like, well, I'm going to watch this, but Justin Hartley is Green Arrow. I don't know why you're trying to give me another Oliver Queen.
Yes.
And that, like, Smallville had ended not light years away from when Arrow began. So it's like, Justin Hartley is still, no one's watching This Is Us. That's what I was saying.
Yes.
Just bring him back. But the first episode of Arrow, like, legitimately, Oliver shows up off his island, kills a bunch of people in the first episode,
Yes.
gets paired up with John Diggle, and I'm like, wow, so this is different.
Yeah.
So this is very different than what was happening. But building it slowly, quietly, smally, in a week-to-week like, Oliver's, listen, I got this book. I got a list of people who wronged the city. I'm going after them. Period.
Yeah.
That's it. Once you start building the interest, the fan base, the storylines, then he starts bringing in, oh, okay, well, we know that Green Arrow interacts with this character. Let's bring that in. Now we got Laurel Lance. Now we know he interacts with that person. Let's bring this in. A few years in, you know what? Maybe we should start bringing in a Flash.
Yeah.
Let's hire this guy who can sing and dance. Right? And everyone's like, well, he's going to be fine. And then it starts to build slowly, and the connections. And then when you spin off Flash, tonally, completely different than Arrow, works great. Now, did Arrow get a little long in the tooth? Yes, it did. Did Flash maybe go a little too long? Yes. But then when you think of the other ones that they spun off, Supergirl, again, super fun, totally different vibe on that show. Legends of Tomorrow, oh my goodness, totally bonkers. Like the Guardians of the Galaxy of the Arrowverse, just some nonsense. And it worked because they embraced how silly it was every week. The Stargirl show, totally weird. And then they had those ones that went right to, HBO Max, where they had like the Doom Patrol, which I don't think I ever watched, but then Titans, which I did. And that was dark. But all of that stuff fit together so well because the people making it understood how to make interconnected things that also maintain their own individual storyline. And then, so then the people in charge of the DCU, the cinematic version, are like, well, we don't have to do anything they're doing. We're going to have our own people. And you're like, but these people are good at what they're doing and they understand the character because they've been playing it a long time. You just hired someone for their name and they don't know anything about this character. Yeah. And I just think it was a big swing and it was a miss. I will say the one that I loved, I thought Ben Affleck was great as that version of Batman, right? An older, grumpier, my superpower is my money. I'm not here for any of this. Great. I liked that vibe. I thought he did a good job. I think Jason Momoa as Aquaman hit the nail on the head. But he was not really playing Aquaman. He was simply being Jason Momoa in an Aquaman movie, which I didn't mind because it made sense for that movie. But also that movie was poorly assembled. Not his fault. He was doing his best to do whatever he could. But that one at least was a sense of fun. But none of those movies. I couldn't tell you the first 2/3 of the first Wonder Woman. Yeah. But I don't. None of those. They seem to all be made by people who had no idea what the source material was, had no idea what those characters were. And it's interesting, right? Because the Marvel comics, and again, I'm not a huge comics aficionado, so I can't speak with any true authority on this, but the vibe of Marvel has always been like, well, these are people who they're humans. They have issues, they have problems, they're dealing with it, but they also have all these superpowers. Whereas the DC Comics, especially if you start with the triumvirate of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, these are the new mythological heroes. These are our new air quotes gods.
Yeah.
Not the new gods, but these are our new myths, our new gods, our new stories. But if you don't have an understanding of that impact and what it means, it's hard to make a movie that honors that, because the trick with any of these movies is bringing in fans of the IP, bringing in fans of what have been done before, bringing in fans who've never seen this before and like it, and then being able to please all of those groups together. And I think Kevin Feige had the secret sauce to do that for the most part. I don't know that anyone making those DC movies did. And that brings us to James Gunn's Superman, which I don't like when a director puts their name above the title. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yes. No, it is a fascinating thing because, because when you think of the original Superman, and you think of the movies that were, I was talking to Todd about this on another podcast episode about how Superman feels like it belongs with Star Wars and like Jaws and like that late 70s, early 80s. It's not really like a comic book movie. Right,
spectacle.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we think of those as Donner's Superman, Lucas's Star Wars, and Spielberg's Jaws, but we don't call them that, right? Like
they didn't either.
Right, exactly.
Right?
That's what. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
The difference.
Yes.
I don't know how much of the press you saw for Superman, but man, James Gunn was all over it.
He was, yeah. Which is funny because Feige is the opposite, right? Like it wasn't. It's not. I mean, now he's doing interviews. Like he did a really good one recently. Ahead of Fantastic Four. He's kind of out there a little bit more now because I think it's.
He has to be because Stan Lee isn't anymore.
Right, exactly. And I also think too because the Marvel thing has gotten so big, he can't be in the shadows as much. I think after Endgame, but before that, it was always this idea of like this comic book fan, Kevin Feige, who they looked at the Marvel characters that they had left that after all the ones had been sold off to other, Fox and
all the lawsuits and that.
Yeah, they're like, okay, here's who we have. What if we made our own Avengers? And but you're right. He's an actual comic book fan. I mean, he collected the comics. He read them. He knew all these stories. He knew which ones he wanted to use. And I think like a Zack Snyder. Oh, I want to do a different version of Superman.
And that's the problem right there. No one wants a different version of Superman.
No, right? Yes, right. No, and I think it's interesting with the James Gunn thing because you're right. Like, I wonder if part of it is the whole thing where he was fired by Marvel over the tweets. Again, going back to the cancel culture thing, where he was fired but then came back because again he was contrite about what happened and all of that. But also that's how DC meets him. I don't know if there's a part of him who's just like, yeah, I want this to be my thing. I want this to be all about me. Whereas Kevin Feige, none of these are like Kevin Feige's always makes a big deal about the directors that he's got making his movies. And maybe that's part of it too, is the fact that Gunn is actually directing it. And whereas Feige never directs them, he wants his directors to kind of put their stamp on the movie and have it feel the way that the director wants it to feel.
Yeah. It made me, I loved Guardians of the Galaxy 1. But I also had enough of a surface knowledge of James Gunn to know that his other movies, I was not like Slither and some of the no, those are not movies I enjoy. This is not a director I enjoy. He was the right fit for Guardians of the Galaxy. But it's so interesting, and I think maybe we've talked about this before, the Tim Burton effect, the Batman Returns effect.
Yes.
Batman 89 comes out and people are like, holy crap, this is fantastic. Oh my goodness, look how good this is. You know what, Tim Burton? You can do whatever you want for the second. We're not going to put any guardrails on you at all. You go ahead and go nuts. And then we got Danny DeVito eating raw fish and dribbling black goo for 2 hours. No. Sometimes these directors need guardrails. You have to step in. And yes, too much studio oversight is not good, but too little is not good. Yeah. And the difference between Guardians 1, Guardians 2, and then Guardians 3, in my opinion, I was like, oh no. It's too much.
Well,
And then the Suicide Squad, I was like, oh, I don't
yeah,
care for this at all.
right.
It's too much. And so I was a little bit worried. I was like, oh, so now he's the head of this studio. He's gonna have no rules. And I don't want a Superman movie that looks like the Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I think when I went to see it, I went in with very low expectations. I was like, listen, clearly James Gunn is a comic fan. He understands the character. He knows what Superman is about. Great. For me, and again, it's not fair for me to bring my expectations into any movie, but I think with these characters, it's almost unavoidable. And my Superman is an interesting, right? My Superman, my Clark Kent is Tom Welling. Like my Superman is probably Christopher Reeve. And again, because that was so interwoven into Smallville, I would say without a doubt that Tom Welling's Clark Kent grows into Christopher Reeve's Superman. You know what I mean? And because Reeve was so involved with Smallville and was so interactive with it and was on the show for multiple times, that's where my Superman ideas come from. And it's the reason Superman is Ma and Pa Kent, period, full stop. Right? Because without them, he could have been Batman. He could have been someone else. But this is a refugee, an immigrant, an undocumented immigrant from another planet who is here because he had nothing left. His parents were trying to save him, and he is found by Ma and Pa Kent and raised with these values that allow him to be truth, justice, and air quotes the American way. That's what he's always been a symbol of hope. He always fights for those who can't fight for himself. He always represents the little guy. That is what Superman has been: light, hope, purpose, good, right? And he's that way because of Ma and Pa Kent. And when I saw that Zack Snyder one,
Yes.
and Ma and Pa Kent were butchered, I was like,
Yes.
no, I can't.
Right.
This is not at all correct. And so in this one, I was like, well, at least maybe that'll be different. And so I had a problem again with the way Ma and Pa Kent. They were pictured as kind of hicks, which I was like, okay, number one, Kansas is not in the South. What are these accents?
Right.
Number two, they're not dumb. What is this? They can operate a phone. And then, so yes, the speech between Pa Kent and Superman in this newest movie is great. And it's at the heart of the movie. What I liked about it was, again, that lightness, that hope. And thinking about these 4 movies over the course of the year, how Brave New World starts out with, can we change? Thunderbolts is like, let's work on our unprocessed trauma together. And then Superman comes in with a big swing of like, let's bring back light and hope. Let's have a good time. These movies are silly and fun. And here's a dog wearing a cape. And on that level, great.
Yeah, I think so, 2 points. I mean, one, yeah, the idea, the thing I took from the Gun Superman is, why can't maybe nice is punk rock, which I
Yes.
love that
Yep.
line.
Yeah.
But also the Kansas thing. I mean, I get it if Somebody Somewhere didn't exist as a TV show. But it does exist as a TV show. It exists. It's Kansas. I mean, yes, it's College Town, Kansas. It's near, Kansas State, but it does show you that Kansas is not just that. And I get in the comic books, I think that was supposed to be, I mean, the comic book was created on the East Coast. It was in New York City. And so that's probably the idea they would have had of Kansas at that time, for the, was it Schuster and Siegel, I think. That probably would have been their concept.
Well, they were out of Cleveland, weren't they?
That's right. You're right. That's right. They were out of Cleveland. So actually, they don't really have any excuse then, because Cleveland is a little bit closer. You're still Midwest at that point. But yeah, I think the Southern accents. I mean, yes, the old people can't use a phone part. That would, but it didn't, like you said, it didn't come off as old people can't use a phone. It came off as these bumpkins don't know what a cell phone is, and suddenly Clark is giving them this technology.
Yeah. There's a better way to do that gag, know, yeah.
But you're right about the fact that because this one movie does something that the other Supermans don't do. I think the comic books had touched on this idea possibly in some ways, but this idea that Superman's parents might not have been completely altruistic, that because there's that idea, I'm not adopted, so I wouldn't be able to say for sure, but I know that there's that idea of like whether you're if somebody's adopted, their real parents, their biological parents versus the adopted parents, and this idea of like, I have to find my biological parents. And I thought that was a part of this movie that I thought worked really well, this idea of like, I need to know my biological parents. I need to know, like when he would get worked on in the Fortress of Solitude.
Yep.
He would have that image of Bradley Cooper as his dad, and it gets
Oh
cut
boy.
off. And then he finds out that the full message is not something nice, that they'd wanted
Yep.
him to take over the planet and rule it like a god or whatever, and have a harem and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like,
It's the nature versus nurture.
right, exactly. And the fact that he comes to terms with it and says, that this is not who, and none of the other movies did that. I mean,
Yeah.
as much trouble as Marlon Brando was on the set, his character in the movie was this benevolent leader, who's like
Yep.
sending Terrence Stamp to the Phantom Zone and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
same with Russell
Smallville
Crowe.
did cover that. There were definitely some episodes of like, which ironically, Terrence Stamp played Jor-El
Oh, he did.
on
Yes,
Smallville.
nice. That's right.
Which there were definitely some episodes of Jor-El being like, no, you can conquer. Be
Yeah.
there to conquer. And Clark being like, no, that's not who I am.
Yeah.
These are my parents.
Yeah.
You are not. I am not. So I like that theme. I think that absolutely you're right. That was carried through well in this. And the idea of, okay, so this is who I am. I get to choose my path and my destiny. And then the found family. Like I like the inclusion of the Justice Gang and all of that. And yeah, the themes were there. It just was so much movie.
It's a lot of movie. I think, so it's funny because you and I went in with different expectations. I had only seen the trailers. I saw the trailers, like for during Thunderbolts and stuff, and I thought this movie,
Sure.
Yeah, I thought, oh, this is gonna be amazing. It's gonna be a new classic. It's gonna be one of the best ever, and all that. And I watched it, and I was like, right away, I was like, well, this isn't going to be one of the best ever. Like, I just knew right away, And then it won me back over as a fun movie that I can enjoy, and I appreciated it. And and I'm excited to see what he does next. I think the Supergirl is going to be probably more of a darker one, which that was what the third movie was originally supposed to be. It was supposed to be sort of a Supergirl with a darker take, and with Brainiac and all that. And I guess whoever it was that was looking at the movie was like, well, you can't spend that much money on that movie. I think the producer or whatever, they just they toned it down to what we ended up getting with Robert Vaughn and Richard Pryor, which I love Richard Pryor in that movie. But either way, so I'm curious to see what he does. That it's kind of funny because I think the last two movies between Superman and then Fantastic Four, which we discussed on the LAMBcast, there's an excitement for like what both of these places are going to do next, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's interesting, right? Again, because unfair of me to take my expectations into a thing, but when Supergirl comes in at the end of Superman and is a essentially drunk party girl, I was like, oh no, that's not right, because depending on which mythology you follow, right? In theory, she's older because she was his babysitter on Krypton, but her path to Earth got interrupted, and so it's interesting which version you follow. But if you did watch the Melissa Benoist, again, can sing and dance. Let's hire these Broadway people to do shows, right? She and Gustin together were great when they had scenes together. Her version was so genuine, so pure. So, Superman and Lois is the other one I thought. Which, by the way, if you didn't watch that, it's on Max now. You can watch all the episodes.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've been meaning to check that one out.
So good.
Yes.
And talk about a show that sticks the landing. They got 4 years, and their final episode is beautiful. Anyway, I learned that yes, in the comics there is a comic in which Supergirl is a drunk party girl who has to go to other planets in order to be drunk because yellow sun, etc. I don't know that I want that, but we'll see. Hey, whatever.
Well, because I think it might be another situation where she's dealing with trauma, and that she's drinking it away. In her case, I think that's what the idea is supposed to be, that she's drinking it away.
Right.
But I think the other thing that's going to be interesting about that is that we just saw in Thunderbolts Florence Pugh, as you said, stick the landing in her case, right? I mean, she
do that better.
She nailed it all around, and she was drinking too, right? Her character was dealing with alcoholism. I mean, there's that really, really powerful scene when she goes into the void and she's going through the different rooms and she faces herself, and the self that she's facing is like trying to stuff vodka down her throat.
It's upsetting and powerful. And,
I mean, that movie is just so. And I mean, to give James Gunn credit, I mean, I'd say, just my own personal confession, the only MCU movie that brought me to tears was the third Guardians of the Galaxy, when Rocket almost dies and he sees Lila, and that was just, I mean, animals are always going to do that for me. I'm always going to have trouble with animals. And I that's another thing with Guardians of the Galaxy plus, Superman, is that Gunn really wants to get the word out about animal testing. And
but God, there's got to be a better way.
Well,
It's so brutal, but
yes,
maybe that's his point. It's
exactly.
so brutal.
I mean, PETA applauded Guardians of the Galaxy 3. It's like if PETA is applauding your depiction of animal testing, because they could be like, hey, we've got our undercover agents
Yes.
that got some videos to show you. And the
Yeah.
fact that they applauded that movie, that tells you, because Guardians of the Galaxy is one of my favorite. I have it as my second favorite MCU movie below Winter Soldiers, because I loved that background, all
It
that
was
stuff.
so unexpected.
Yeah, but it's not a movie I'm going to watch again anytime soon.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why that one didn't. How all the other trilogies that were big, Iron Man, the third one made $1 billion, the third Captain America made $1 billion. This one was probably supposed to be their $1 billion, but I just don't. It didn't get the. I don't think it got the repeat viewings that $1 billion
Well,
earner
I think
needs.
it's a lot of the animal testing scenes are so upsetting.
They are,
They're
yeah.
just so upsetting. It was hard for me to watch that movie. I will never watch it again.
No. I mean,
And which is not fair because there's a lot of other really good stuff in it, but it's such a hard watch.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what, and I think to your point about Kevin Feige, I think not doing it. I think part of it was that when Gunn came back, they wanted him to do the movie he wanted to make, because I think they kind of felt bad about what happened with that situation as well. I think they wanted him to do the movie he wanted to make, and I mean, if you're Bob Iger, I do wonder. Now, I think the way this worked out is the way it should have worked out. But I feel like I wonder if you're Bob Iger and you know this stuff, if he knew this stuff better, because I don't think he knows it as well. But if in his mind he's thinking for $1 billion earners, oh, let's turn the third Guardians of the Galaxy into the introduction of the Fantastic Four and make this big epic, $275, $300 million space, thing that goes on for like 2.5 hours, and it's this big thing. It's this big spectacle, and then Fantastic Four: First Steps is actually the first Fantastic Four movie.
Interesting.
And I do think that's probably an easy way to make $1 billion. I think I don't know what it would have looked like as a movie. It's not the movie I would have wanted, seeing Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and then also seeing Fantastic Four: First Steps. I think the way Feige's doing it is right. We'll see if it pays off in terms of the Avengers movies, if they make the money that Iger is going to want him to have made for those. But I think, if you're trying to squeeze every last dime out of it, that's probably the way you do it. And I think, when it comes to like building something and making something, I mean, $850 million that Guardians of the Galaxy made isn't no small amount of money, but you usually, if you spend 250, you want to make at least $1 billion on it. And I think Feige looked at it and said, no, this is a good third movie to this trilogy. This is a good way to kind of wrap this, at least. I guess it's kind of a soft wrap, because I think they may do more in the future. But
soft wrap with like a soft reboot tucked in. Like, well, here could be our next squad.
Yeah.
And I like that. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that he said that I thought was really important, that James Gunn said about Superman, was that he didn't like the fact that the second Guardians of the Galaxy movie introduced Adam Warlock, because when he made the third movie, he had to use him somehow. And I like Will Poulter's character, but it does kind of feel like he's sort of this extra thing that's sort of added in a little bit. And that's why for Superman, he said, other than the fact that we knew we were going to make Supergirl, so we'll show Supergirl in here, we're not going to do anything. And to be fair, Feige kind of did the same thing. The only thing he put in for his extra scene was Dr. Doom, because we know he's going to be the baddie in the movies. And so, but that's one of those things. I mean, how many of these post-credit scenes don't pay off? I mean, I guess technically they said that the X-Men are going to be the X-Men from the universe that Monica Rambeau ends up in at the end of the Marvels. But they do kind of hem themselves in with things that they have to do if they just, have an idea at the end of a movie there or something like that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, it's the having the clear vision of the overarching game plan. And does that pay off? Does it not pay off? I will say and just to, so Superman, what I like is that it was so light and so fun. I didn't like that there was so much in it. It kind of needed a little bit less. It felt like a movie like, well, let's put everything in this in case we don't get to do another one.
Right.
And that's fine. I think Nicholas Hoult did a good job as Lex. I think he was vicious and evil. When he just straight up shoots a guy, like, I was not ready for that.
No.
But boy, I feel like Eddie Gathegi stole the movie. Mr. Terrific is, in my opinion, the best part.
Yeah.
The best part. The scene where he walks in and they're like, the guy goes, yeah, I can help you. And he goes, grabs him by the face, shoves him away and goes, I don't need your help. And I'm goddamn Mr. Terrific.
Right.
The best.
Yeah.
Like, there is a guy who understood the assignment and executes it fully.
Yeah.
And so there are definitely moments of that movie that are great, are super fun. I liked them. It'll be interesting to see what they do next, right? The DC, what do you call it? The DC cinematic. Oh, listen, the DC movies.
Right.
They've been struggling. And I think that maybe, take it. They said like Matt Reeves's Batman is still their Batman, so I guess we still get our patsing around. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how all of that goes. But yeah. But then yeah, Fantastic Four. What I liked about it the most is that it is very much standalone, separate, and comes back to very old school. Like no, the Fantastic Four is family first, also saving the world, and in the same way we pop into Superman in year 3 of him Supermaning, pop into Fantastic Four of year 4 of them Fantastic Fouring, they all seem way more capable than he did.
Yes. Right. That's, because that's an idea that I guess that idea started with Spider-Man, right? With that, we get introduced to Spider-Man in Civil War, and then the very first movie isn't the origin story. It's not him walking into a lab or whatever and getting bitten by a spider.
Right. Which is fine. We all know the story at this point. If I got to see Martha Wayne's pearl necklace pop and be slow motion crash to the ground one more damn time.
Yes. Right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, to your point too about the Batman part of it, one thing that, I think you're right about, I think the James Gunn thing that's interesting, I think, because I like the movie, but I think to your point about it being too much, it is that idea of like, okay, instead of making a siloed off Superman, right? You've got a Superman that exists in a world that already has superheroes in it. And he's been a superhero, but these other superheroes have been there. We got to see what it looks like. And so now it's like that juxtaposition 2 weeks later of a Fantastic Four that is just its own superhero team and doesn't have any of that. The world building part of it, there's something to be said for the world building part of it, I guess, that when you just jump in like that, it's nice, but on the other hand, it can be too much. Sometimes you need and I don't know how to, I guess Fantastic Four, I mean, I guess leave it to Feige, right, to do it the right way, where not an origin story.
We see it in Fantastic Four through like news clips and oh, we're celebrating the Fantastic Four. Remember how they defeated these apes and this mole man and this thing, and we're all like, totally remember that. That was well done. Whereas in the Superman, it feels like you'd feel dropped into a story where you're like, wait, what did I missed something?
Yes.
But I don't know what makes one better than the other, or at least less jarring. I don't know. And I think the aesthetic is carried out through the movie in both well. I just think it's the aesthetic is jarring in Superman. I hesitate to say that. I mean, it fits, but it's so loud and so bright and so colorful.
Yeah.
Whereas in Fantastic Four, it's so controlled. It's definitely, they're both very much comic book environments, but the control exhibited in Fantastic Four maybe pays off better than in Superman.
Yeah, well, because I mean, the other thing too, with like you talk about with Mr. Terrific, you could probably say it about Guy Gardner, Green Lantern with Nathan Fillion as well.
Nathan Fillion deserves so much more than he's
right. It's one of those things where you're almost like, boy, maybe I just want to watch Mr. Terrific for 30 minutes, and I think that's the other piece of it. I mean that's kind of what happened with Black Widow. I thought too was that it was supposed to be Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow movie, but it's like, oh, here's David Harbour doing his David Harbour thing. And then
he stole the movie, and then as soon as Yelena shows up, I'm like, oh, well, all I want to watch is this character.
Exactly, yeah.
This is all I want now. She's so much more interesting. But credit to Scarlett Johansson for understanding, like, that's Natasha's whole deal is quiet, reserved skill.
Yes.
Blending into whatever the situation calls for, whereas Yelena is like, no, the world can blend into me.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. I think it's going to be interesting to see what Gunn does further. I mean, this is sort of he sort of started his first thing. I mean, the other thing that looks like that Gunn is doing is he's sort of locking down all the TV shows and he's sort of putting them all together. And
this Lanterns TV show that's coming up, that is going to be quite a litmus test, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree there because that's the one thing that the CW couldn't do was that kind of thing, right? They couldn't.
Towards the end, when they were kind of wrapping up everything, and Diggle started going, David Ramsey's John Diggle started going to all the shows and showing up, and because he was directing a lot of the episodes, and so he would show up on all the shows, Like Flash. He started on Arrow, then he showed up on Flash, then he was on Supergirl, then he showed up on Superman and Lois, which argument may or may not have been the same universe. And the one time he showed up and somebody was like, "Hey, John," someone from another universe, "Where's your ring?" And I was like, "Oh,
Right.
that's all I want now.
Right. Yeah.
That's all I want now. Please let his real name be Stewart, and please let this be." And he definitely had a green ring, and that never paid off.
Right.
It just made me sad because, oh my God, David Ramsey would have been an exceptional John Stewart.
Yeah. But
Anyway.
that problem is that the Green Lantern, maybe out of all of the the superheroes that are out there, that might be the hardest one to pull off. Like,
Yes.
Gunn was able to do it pretty well with but also he was only a supporting character. It's
such an odd power,
yes.
right? So and lanterns will be cool because really, if you do the Lantern Corps, it's just this group of intergalactic cops. Some of them are assigned to Earth, and some are not. And here's our lanterns. Here's what they do. And and then there's also yellow ones and blue ones and purple ones and whatever. But no, the Green Lantern Corps. It's going to be interesting. It's just going to be so interesting because I kind of want it to be Law and Order. Oh, what? You know what I mean?
Yes.
I want it to be taken seriously, but with these fantastical elements, and that's not really James Gunn's vision. So it'll be interesting to see. But like, imagine if you watched the Lantern Show and it operated like an episode of SVU, where the first half is them, solving a crime on some planet and then bringing them back to Oa for trial, and like.
Yeah, that would be
would watch.
Right.
Would watch.
Well, because think about She-Hulk, which
yes. Oh my God, I loved that.
Yes, I love She-Hulk, and I think the thing with She-Hulk was that so maybe it didn't do whatever numbers they needed it to do, but I think, and this is the thing, I think maybe Kevin Feige in the interview he talked about, he said that we had generated too much content, we had put too much stuff out there,
and that's fair.
Yeah, but I think there's not a problem with too much content. I think it's too much content that's interconnected. And one of the best things about She-Hulk is that, Matt Murdock, Charlie, not Charlie Cox. Is that his name? Charlie Cox?
Yeah, that's Charlie Cox.
Oh, why did I not think it was
Charlie Cox from the movie? Ew, is it Enchanted? Is it Woody? The Claire Danes movie. Well, he's really good in that.
Oh no, I haven't seen him in anything else other than as Daredevil.
Robert De Niro. What the hell's the name of that movie? Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Okay, yeah,
because it's really good.
Okay, I'll have to check it out. Yeah, but he hooks up with Tatiana Maslany with She-Hulk. They kind of hook up. He meets her family, with the guy from Perfect Strangers and all of that.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah, but then how he's still on his own show, and nothing that happened with She-Hulk matters, and I think that's okay. I think
that's fine. Yeah,
I think She-Hulk could exist as its own thing. That yes, it's part of the MCU, right? You can have people guest like Charlie Cox or whoever, Tim Roth, they can guest or whatever. But I love the idea of She-Hulk as like a monk or a psych, in the MCU. Yeah. It was offbeat, it was fun, but they had mysteries, and she would do the courtroom stuff, and I thought all of it was so great. And I just wonder if like
Stardust. Sorry,
right?
That's the name of the movie. Stardust.
Oh, Stardust. Oh, I've heard of that. Okay,
if you haven't watched Stardust, watch Stardust.
I'm gonna check that out.
Yes, Psych. If you treat it like Psych can exist within everyone's world and no one's world at the same time.
Yeah, it would be perfect. I mean, another one I think of. I just watched Ms. Marvel recently, and I think the thing with Ms. Marvel is I liked it, I enjoyed it, but there were parts of it that definitely were not made for my demographic. It's definitely more of a younger teenage movie.
Sure.
But then there's stuff like this,
which you can enjoy, but also acknowledge like, well, this part's not for me, and that's fine.
Yeah, I think the thing was that like, okay, it was a good show. But did people need her to be in the Captain Marvel movie? It's like maybe she needed more of her own stuff. Maybe she needed a second season of her show to do stuff.
Oh, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Yes, but oh my God, I loved her in the Marvels because she added a lightness. Carol Danvers is very much not quipping. Like, I'm not here to make jokes. I am here to do my job, period. And you need to pair that with a lightness. And I think that Iman Vellani, again, genius casting. What a perfect
she's
casting
so good, yeah.
for Ms. Marvel. Yeah. Her paired with Brie Larson's no nonsense, I will not deal with my trauma. Beautiful. I loved that.
It was
slapping the
good.
foot on
I
it.
think it was, I liked that movie. I thought that movie was fun.
Love
I
it.
enjoyed it. But I think part of the reason why it didn't do so well, I think it's not the homework thing so much. I think it was that one, I think first off, the first Captain Marvel movie,
Do you think the answer is racism and sexism? Because
well,
I do.
that accounts for why.
That, yes,
Well,
and
but I don't think there's enough of that audience that would make it do as bad as it did,
no,
financially.
the issue with that audience is what do they call it? The review bombing stuff
Yes,
that happens before it even comes out.
right.
And
Which,
and I think we have to be at the point now where we understand that's happening.
yeah,
We understand who's doing it. Friggin' white supremacists. Can they just all move to some
right.
island and then they can exist by
Exactly,
themselves? They
exactly.
never have to interact with anyone else.
Yeah,
They'll be perfectly happy.
yeah.
Oh, friggin' white supremacists are the problem everywhere.
Well, there's that. I think that's a part of it. I think part of it too is that, like, I think Marvel was stuck in a kind of a catch-22, because if you tell everybody you don't need to see Ms. Marvel or WandaVision to be able to
Right.
see the Marvels, then you're telling people don't bother watching them, which you don't want that, because you
Yeah.
still want them to watch them. The whole
Yeah, the phrasing has to be like, you can, and it
right,
will add to the experience, but you don't have to. The
right,
experience is still going to be great. You have to have that mentality.
yeah,
Nobody wants to have to do homework before they see a thing.
yeah, because
But if you like, yeah, you could, but you don't have to. There's a ton of content out there. You
yeah,
don't have to watch all of it.
right,
But that's the trick, right? All that stuff has to work by itself and with everything else.
yeah. Well, because what it's supposed to do, what the Marvels is supposed to do, is it's supposed to sell me on going back and watching Ms. Marvel. That's really
True.
what the ultimate goal is, and I think that's what it did. I think, to
Yeah.
your point, I really liked her in the movie. I was just, I wonder, like, for both her and for Captain Marvel, for Brie Larson's Captain Marvel, if they didn't just need one more thing for themselves, the way that, like, Iron Man had 2 movies to develop
Oh, I see what
himself.
you're saying.
you
Sure,
know
sure, sure.
and even Captain America, he still technically had 2 movies to develop himself, because even though we get Black Widow, we get introduced to Falcon and all these other characters, they're so very clearly the supporting characters.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, like, the way that the Avengers worked, where it was like 5 movies. I'm not saying they each needed 5 movies, but like maybe one more season of Ms. Marvel and one more standalone Captain America movie, and then
There's
you put the
nothing
2 of
wrong
them
with a
together.
slow burn. There's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with a slow build.
yeah.
It pays off better.
Yeah, because I think that, but I also think, I wonder with the Ms. Marvel show, if it did have trouble finding an audience, in that sense that, like, you have the moments where, if you're an adult, like your 46-year-old man like me watching it, and you're like, wow, okay, I don't really know The Weeknd that well, and some of this stuff is very teen girl for me, and it's not really going to work for me necessarily.
Sure, that's fair.
But on the other hand, it's like the partition stuff. It's like, well, because I think 2022, that's probably really marketed towards, like, Gen Alpha, right? That age cohort that's born like the late 2000s, early 2010s, that would be
Hmm.
watching that. The partition stuff is a little bit heavy for that age group. It's heavy stuff. And so, but again, like, maybe you don't need to worry about who your audience is. You just make the thing you want to make, and let it find its audience. And then, and maybe to that point, maybe that's why a second season is there, to really build on that audience that you found. That,
Yeah.
okay, this is going to cover a lot of different things, and it's going to have a unique audience, probably, that can handle, that's not going to be completely turned off by the teen stuff. And I think that's,
Right.
for me, I didn't turn it off because of the teen stuff. I just said, okay, this is not for me. But the heavy stuff also didn't turn me off, and it was touching. And I mean, there were moments where it's very emotional. And yeah, I wonder if maybe that's the other part of it, is that this, whether it's not even just so much about too much content, but it's almost like they push it so much, like,
Yeah.
okay, we've introduced this person here, there's the next thing. I mean, the other thing I would say quickly about Brave New World is that movie was marketed as as Falcon versus Red Hulk, but that only really happens at the end of the movie. Really,
Yeah.
like you said, the movie is about redemption and being, can you change as a person? And I think it's shown in a lot of ways. It was shown in a way that was very upsetting for me, where I can't remember I'm drawing a blank on the actor's name, who was the one who was put in prison.
Oh, Carl Lumley.
Carl Lumbly.
Which, by the way, if you have never watched Alias,
Yes,
he's so good in Alias.
Oh,
He's so good at Mantis. If you go back to Mantis, anyway, sorry,
oh yes,
Carl Lumley
that's
is
right.
so good in all the things all the time.
He's so great. And I was like, I didn't want to see him put in prison. But then, as I thought about it more, it's like he almost has sort of a fake redemption. Not fake redemption. He was falsely accused, right? And it's like this idea
Yeah.
of, can you change who you are? And in his case, he's having to change his perception of who he is, not who he is, right? Like he's seen as an ex-con when he wasn't an ex-con.
Right.
Whereas on the other hand, Thunderbolt Ross, his character does all these bad things, but he doesn't get in trouble for them, right? He's not seen as an ex-con. He's a president, right? He's, and I love that duality there. It's just, how do you advertise that, right? Like, how do you advertise all that stuff
it's
there?
redemption and forgiveness, and those are
Yes.
heavy themes in a
Yeah.
summer blockbuster,
Right.
early summer blockbuster.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
to your point, it worked. I think, that one from a critic score and also the cinema score. And I think the cinema score one, that one, it took a hit on that. It was like a B-, which was like the lowest of any Marvel movie, which, I mean, again, compare that to like Thor Dark World, which I think is, it's not a horrible movie, but I don't think it's as good as Brave New World.
There are definitely parts of it I enjoy. Most of it is Kat Dennings.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Kat Dennings is great in it, but that movie got an A- because it came out right after Avengers, and
Of course,
so
yeah.
the audience went in and they were on this big high of the Avengers.
The weight of expectations.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whereas this time it had been a long time since anything had come up, and since last year's Daredevil and Wolverine, they're seeing this big Red Hulk versus the Falcon thing, and then you get stuck in and you realize that's not what the movie is. It's a movie that you for me at least, I had to kind of process it. I had to think about it a little bit. I had to
I kind of wish, and it's impossible, right? But I wish the marketing department was sometimes more tied into Kevin Feige's vision, because I think if it was, the Red Hulk would never have been mentioned in any of the marketing, and we all would have been surprised by that. And those of us who know inevitably Thunderbolt becomes Red Hulk, we'd have kind of seen the hints and maybe had a guess. But imagine if you went into that not knowing the Red Hulk was in it.
Yes.
How different it would have felt. Man, like coulda, woulda, shoulda. What are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess the other thing too is the reshoots part of it. It did, make, like, I think, Giancarlo Esposito's, his character, I think, got a little bit diminished because of the reshoots.
Yeah, but give me more of him. That dude.
All day.
Makes everything he's in better.
Yeah, exactly. We need his Sidewinder back. So
yes.
Yeah, I loved. I just finally watched Breaking Bad, and I mean, he's just so great in that. And one of my favorite performances of him is in the movie Rabbit Hole. I don't know if you've seen that one.
No.
Okay, so Rabbit Hole is a movie. It's got Nicole Kidman and Aaron Eckhart and Miles Teller. Nicole Kidman and Aaron Eckhart are a couple whose son was hit by a car, and Miles Teller is the one who was driving the car. He was a teenager at that time, and Giancarlo Esposito, I believe he plays Nicole Kidman's sister's husband or boyfriend or something, And so there's a few scenes where he's not really in the movie that much, but he kind of shows up as the boyfriend, when they do picnics and stuff like that. And he's just so great. It's just so him. I love that character. So, I mean, that movie is that one's a kind of a rough sit as well, just because it is.
If you never watched Kaleidoscope on Netflix.
Oh, no, I haven't.
It's really interesting. He does a really great job in that too. And it's a show where each episode is a different piece of the timeline of a heist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to you if you watch them in chronological order or in the order they're presented, which is like, it'll go from like the day before the heist to 6 days after the heist to 2 years before the heist, 20 years before the heist. Each episode is a different color, is a different time, but he's the center thread through all of it. Really interesting, and he's just so good. So yes,
I need to see that then. Yeah, I need to see. I hope we get more of his Sidewinder. If it's not in a movie, I would, to be honest, I would love. I know at this point it feels like Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie have graduated to movies, and that's it. But I would love another Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Honestly,
series.
You're so right. Yeah, season 2 of Falcon and Winter Soldier, and if you want to call it Captain America Winter Soldier or whatever, Captain America Bucky, where they deal with Sidewinder and the Serpent Society. Yeah. Great. Give me that.
I think that would be a great 6 episodes. That would be, we could explore more too of Bucky and the Anthony Mackie, Sam Wilson's sister.
Oh, that's all I want.
Yes,
more of Bucky flirting with Sarah.
Right, exactly. I think that I think it's interesting now that Marvel's kind of starting to realize what DC had always known, right? Because DC has always been in a situation where they've always had all their characters. They've never sold anybody off. And for the longest time, they just did 2 things. They did Superman and Batman, and then maybe a Wonder Woman TV show or something like that. And it's like they tried Green Lantern and it didn't work, and they said, okay, we're just going to stick with Batman and Superman. And then Marvel went ahead and said, nope, you don't have any choice. You got to use them all now, because it's not going to work if you don't use them all. And they struggled with it, especially 2023. Now Marvel's in the same place where they now own all their characters. I mean, Spider-Man's the only one they don't own, but they technically do.
Along those lines, apologies for stepping in.
No,
the Spider-Man air quotes announcement yesterday.
No, I didn't. There was a new announcement.
It's not really an announcement, so
Yeah.
it's just Tom Holland walking in with a new outfit, and
Mm.
it's number one, Tom Holland. As much as I've enjoyed all the Spider-Mans,
Yeah.
except for the Garfield ones, Tom Holland is perfect Peter
Yes.
Parker. But I always felt the way he was brought into the MCU of like, here's Peter Parker, but with piles of Stark tech. I'm
Right.
like, well,
Yes.
that's not really, but okay,
Yep.
he's doing great, and I love it. I would love to see this new one be back to where Peter Parker started. Like
Yeah.
the reason why so many people will say Spider-Man's my favorite is he is the most relatable. Like, yeah, the dude's got spider powers, but can't pay his rent, struggles to keep his job, struggles to keep his girlfriend, always having a hard time, out there in the streets trying to help the neighborhood. Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, period. Like, that's what we need. Tight little Spider-Man story where he battles one dude in the neighborhood while trying to keep his job, while trying to like stop sending him to space.
Right.
I mean, yes, it was brilliant and it all worked great. And thank God for Tom Holland, because I don't know that anyone else could have pulled it off.
Yeah.
But I'm so looking forward to the idea of give me another street level Spider-Man where he's just trying to be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It has to make his own outfits and has to do like that's what I want. And it feels like they're kind of heading that direction. I don't know. We'll see.
Well,
Fingers
because
crossed.
there's actually I don't know if struggle is the right word, but there was definitely some push, back and forth on that because Sony wanted a big intergalactic thing with, Null, the God, and Venom and all that stuff. And they wanted to go big with it. And whereas, Feige in the MCU, they wanted to do a street level thing. And it looks like Feige in the MCU has won, which I didn't think they were going to. I thought, because, for Sony, these are the only movies that they have that make money, right? This is, and so they want to get as much out of it as possible.
Well, and I will say, Venom has always been coming out of the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. I loved Venom. I love the Venom arc. Made sense. Very clean. Venom, the symbiote hates Spider-Man for rejecting it. Eddie Brock hates Peter Parker for getting him to lose his job. Boom. You pile them together. They are now poisonous Spider-Man, thusly Venom. Great. Wonderful. Love it. Having Venom be like, yeah, but the only thing I really hate is Spider-Man. I'm willing to help everybody else. The anti-hero aspect of it. When they were first like, we're making a Venom movie, there's no Spider-Man in it. I was like, what?
Yes.
No. But then when I saw it, I was like, okay, so this is the best it could possibly be without Spider-Man in it, and it's because of Tom Hardy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he understands what works, he understands what doesn't, puts together a great thing. The Carnage one was super silly, very fun. Yes, let Andy Serkis direct these movies. This is a guy who understands some nonsense. The third one, where they tried to bring in Null, was a little bit crazy, but also it's big, loud fun. I really, if they, and this is long down the line, if they bring Venom in, please let it be Tom Hardy. That's a guy who really understands his character. Anyway, sorry.
No,
that was very much a sidetrack.
No, but I totally agree. I think so. This is going to be another one of those scenarios, those situations, right? Kind of, we're going back to the Arrowverse thing that we were talking about, where you fall in love with Grant Gustin, and then you say, oh, here's Ezra Miller, and it's like, well, okay,
no one wants this,
right? Nobody, and I think if they bring in somebody new for Venom, it's going to be the same thing. I mean, it's interesting. I think one of the things, because I had said to you before, like, I thought they should have introduced Wolverine in the Brave New World movie, and it looks like Kevin Feige's plan is to do the Fox, the old X-Men from the show we used to watch, which would mean
make Hugh Jackman do it till he's 90.
Right, exactly. And I wonder if there's a sense of like, okay, if we have Hugh Jackman play Wolverine this one last time in these two big Avengers movies, that we can bring in our own Wolverine and people will be okay with it. Like, we've just done enough here. But I don't know. I think that there's going to be a similar situation with Venom, where you can't probably give us a Venom that isn't Tom Hardy at this point, because we've fallen in love with him for 3 movies the way we fell in love with Grant Gustin for all those series, and we fell in love with Hugh Jackman for all those movies. It's the Christopher Reeves thing. It's Christopher Reeve. How do you make a new Superman? Luckily, it looks like James Gunn has found a way to do it, but it took.
What was great. I will say that.
Yeah. He's good. So it's all kinds of stuff that's going to be interesting. I think at the very least, I don't know that I believe in the concept of superhero fatigue, because I think, I don't know what you think about that, but I
agree.
I think if there was such a thing, these movies at least dispel that myth, that it's not about superhero fatigue. It's about just making the movies at a certain quality, marketing them the right way, giving people a sense of what they're watching the right way. I think, because again, I think even things like the Eternals that get completely killed, they're not Fantastic Four from 2015. They're not
Fan four
Catwoman.
stick.
Right, exactly, right. It's like Kevin Feige, for all the things that people have been saying about, the superhero fatigue, or he's done too much or whatever. He's never made a movie like none of his movies have ever been at that low level, and I think that's a testament to him.
Yeah.
And I think it's a testament to what he's built. A movie like Thunderbolts, people say, well, it didn't do as well. It's a good movie. It's too bad it didn't make 400. You didn't clear 400 million. But it's a good movie. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens here though from now on. In the next couple of years.
100. I don't believe in superhero fatigue. I believe that Feige might be right when he said, well, it was too much.
Yeah.
I'm fine if you give us a movie and a show a year.
Yeah.
Or even a movie and then a show every other year, something like that. It doesn't have to be 3 movies a year. We don't need that.
Right.
I'm fine with, like, take your time, make something really, really quality, deliver that to us, make it a big spectacle. I think the marketing push behind Fantastic Four really showed, like, yeah, take your time. Give us one a year. As much as I love these movies and I want all of them, give me one a year. That's fine. Make it an event when you drop one. This is the 3rd MCU movie this year. That's too many, and I loved every single one of them. But yeah, like, spread them out. I'm fine with that. But in summary, so that we can get on to Honor and Glory. I have enjoyed all of the movies, Superman being my least favorite of the ones that have come out this year, just because it was just too much. But there were parts of it I really enjoyed. And I am very excited to see what comes next.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way to be.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think, to your point too, about enjoying, which ones enjoyed and didn't enjoy. I mean, I think Thunderbolts was the biggest revelation. I think I didn't know and to be fair, Brave New World was a revelation in the sense that I had heard all the bad stuff about it, and then I watched it and I was like, where did all this bad stuff come from?
Right.
It's not like this amazing, it's not like, it's not like a top 10 one for me or anything like that, but it's like, I didn't think it was that bad. But Thunderbolts, Florence Pugh's
highest
performance,
delivery on the least expectations.
Yeah, and I just, Florence Pugh, I cannot wait to see what she does in future movies. She was probably the biggest revelation. I mean, Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane was great too, I think.
I'd agree.
There's a whole bunch of people there too, but yeah, I agree with you though too. I think next year we're going to have two movies. It looks like. I think that's good. And I also think too, from the TV show standpoint, I think I'm okay with them putting out a bunch of TV shows as long as I can watch them whenever. Again, give me a She-Hulk that's not, that's just She-Hulk.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be interconnected. Yeah.
Give me another season of Ms. Marvel, and just let me explore that character more.
If you want to talk about, like, for Star Wars, we got Skeleton Crew and Andor in the same year. Those are on polar opposite ends of the tone line, but oh my God, they were both brilliant and they both worked. Like, that's fine. Give me that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So, at the very least, I think seeing the success, at least of the last 2 of these movies, and seeing what's happening here, we got some fun expectations for next year. So, I mean, I guess we're moving to the very opposite end of the spectrum here. So I guess we're staying in DC, considering Brave New World was in DC as well. But we've got Honor and Glory here. Godfrey Ho movie, even though he's listed as Godfrey Hall, starring Cynthia Rothrock and Donna Jason. I mean, I guess before we get into the movie, Jenna, just in terms of Cynthia Rothrock, what has your experience been with her?
I've seen several of all the China O'Brien movies. I think there's just 2 of them. I had an awareness of her as one of the, and again, we've talked about, so not to bring it up again, but this very specific subgenre of the 80s, 90s action flicks, where it's the martial arts action flicks, and female stars in there are few and far between, but Cynthia Rothrock was one of the biggest, if not the biggest. And I had an awareness of her that she was one of the stars of this. I can't remember if this came out in 92.
92, yeah.
I think I saw it after I saw Mortal Kombat, because I was like, wow, this Robin Shou is great.
Yes.
What else has he done? And then I stumbled across Honor and Glory and was like, oh my God, Cynthia Rothrock, Chuck Jeffries. I like all these people.
Right.
This one, and again, rewatching it, we talked previously, rewatching American Ninja 4, where I was like, oh, this one's not as fun as the others. This movie, as much fun as I remember.
Yes.
Like, definitely a blast to watch, because it is pure and total nonsense. It is not good by any means. It is not a good movie, but man, is it fun to watch.
Right. Well, because the one thing that it is good is the fight sequences, right? Like the
Yes.
martial arts stuff is great. They don't go too long without a fight, to the point that they jam them in the craziest ways. I think
I wrote down this because you mentioned that.
Yeah.
I put numbers in my notes. Hold on.
Okay.
13. There are in most of these movies in this subgenre, the martial arts action flick, there are one, maybe two fights that establish your main character's skill.
Yeah.
So that you are aware of how skilled they are as a fighter, so that when we get to the fight at the end, you're like, obviously, I understand how skilled they are. I saw it proved earlier. In this movie, we have two leads and then we have two other like side leads.
Yeah.
So, and that's the other thing, like two female leads in one of these movies. Come on.
Yes. Great.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
But so you got 4, semi leads. There are 13 establishing fight sequences where you establish skills.
Yes.
13 sequences that establish the skills of your leads before the final fight.
Yeah, which it's just amazing. And to your point too, like this is only one of 3 movies Donna Jason did. The other one was Undefeatable, where she has a much smaller part. She plays I think she plays a psychiatrist who is working with the woman who the bad guy. She's working with that woman and convinces her to leave him, and then he goes on a killing spree trying to find. That's essentially what happens. But she does do a little martial arts in that. But this one here, I mean, to your point about very few.
I would argue this is a Donna Jason movie with
Exactly.
Cynthia Rothrock in it.
Yeah, it focuses much more on her, and I think it's just one of those things where after the fact they had to put Rothrock on the cover because you can't sell it as a Donna Jason movie. I mean, again, only 3 movies. I think to your point about so few of these movies have women in the leads. It's like Rothrock did her number of them, and then it's like after her, it's like Donna Jason, Kathy Long didn't really do that many. Karen Shepard, which I think Karen Shepard and Rothrock had some kind of rivalry because they also did Hong Kong stuff together, but she didn't do a lot of movies either, and it's really too bad because and really what you end up with is like I was saying this because I had Todd Liebnow on when we talked about Malibu Express, the Andy Sedaris film. It's like in the late 80s, early 90s, the only female-led action series that you have is the Lethal Ladies movies that Sedaris is doing with Donna Spear as the lead, which is too bad when you've got these really great artists, martial artists here who they shine in this movie. They're fantastic.
Yeah, I would agree. They're so Cynthia Rothrock is always good. She understands the assignment. She's going to deliver. It's going to be some sassy quips and some badass fighting. Donna Jason, I was again seeing this and being familiar with Cynthia Rothrock, to not knowing anything about Donna Jason, like she's great in this, and her skill set is again because there's 3 different establishing scenes to establish her skill set, all great, and she's believable as this. They play sisters. One chases honor, one chases glory. Cynthia Rothrock plays Tracy Pride. She is an FBI agent. We meet her in Hong Kong with an establishing sequence to establish her skills as she's partnered with her friend Dragon Lee, played by Robin Shou, and like they talk briefly. She's like, "Hey, I'm going back home. Been sent back home." Great. Get it, plot clear. And then we meet Donna Jason as she's playing the other one.
She's a reporter. Tracy or no?
Tracy. Tracy is Cynthia Rothrock, and why am I Joyce?
Joyce.
She says it like 7 times. Joyce Pride reporting.
Yes.
She plays a reporter, and so she chases glory while the other one chases honor, and so thusly the title Honor and Glory. See, it works. But they're great. They're both in a movie where the acting is suspect. In most of it, the 4 leads, it's very solid. Like you believe them. They have an ease about them, and I thought they did the sister thing great. You believe their relationship. They have a friendliness, a support. They're there for each other, but also understand that, like, because they also have the thing with the daddy issues, which that's explained over and over again in case you were unclear at any one point. But I really like the 2 of them together. I think they're great in this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll do a quick synopsis here, and then we'll kind of go over the highlights. I think just to give people, like you were talking about, Rothrock is an FBI agent who is sent to Hong Kong. She comes back to America to work on a case. The same time, Donna Jason is a reporter in the DC area who's following this banker played by John Miller, who you may remember was the hero in Undefeatable. He's the bad guy
Yes.
here. He's a real jerk. He kills people. He does all kinds of bad stuff. And then
He's a banking billionaire.
He's a banking billionaire.
He's such an 80s bad guy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now we have tech bro billionaires. In the 80s, it was the banking billionaires.
Exactly.
Same thing.
And I mean, he's so bad that he blows off ex-President Ronald Reagan for a meeting. That's how much of a jerk he is. And then Chuck Jeffries plays the head of his security. So that's the thing there. And then as they're sort of, this whole thing is unraveling. They're kind of getting closer to understanding, that John Miller is a bad guy. Jeffries starts to understand that, like, okay, the thing is, he gets into he sees Donna Jason's ability to fight, and he respects her ability to fight. And then in talking to her, he starts to realize, like, yeah, maybe this Miller guy's not so good. And then when he sees how bad he is, he changes his mind to kind of help them out. And then, of course, there's the issue with the father where I guess the construct was that when their parents divorced, the father got Tracy, Cynthia Rothrock, and the mother got Joyce. Donna Jason. And so she was estranged from her father.
Who was also raised by her godfather, who was the Sifu of the local Kung Fu. By the way, this is the movie that taught me that Sifu is the word for Kung Fu teacher.
Right.
It did take a minute where I was like, wait, is his name Sifu? No, Sifu means... It's the Kung Fu version of sensei, like for karate.
Exactly.
But I feel like that's important because it's mentioned a lot.
Exactly. He's always a Sifu. Yeah. And that's the thing too, right? We get a little bit of that Chinese versus Japanese because actually it's a Chinese Chinese actor who plays the Japanese guy, but a guy named Hideo takes over for the security, and he's essentially going around trying to, like, beat people up and get the rest of the stuff. But the number one MacGuffin, I guess, is like some kind of nuclear trigger.
That's just it, right?
Yeah.
Because the plot of this, I saw the Naked Gun last night. And literally the movie opens with them, the bad guys steal out of a safety deposit box. Like, there's a bank heist, they go in, they open the bank deposit box, they pull it out, and they hold it up, and it literally says on it, plot device. And I'm like, yep, got it. But in this, and I had this realization last night in rewatching this movie, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the plot of this comes from a nuclear trigger is stolen, and then Jason Slade, right? That's the villain's name, is going to procure it and then sell it to generic Arab villain to start a nuclear war, right? And then what we learn, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I think this is the first time I've had this recollection, because at no point does the plot matter. At some point we learn that the trigger either was never stolen or didn't exist because the CIA manufactured that in order to ensnare Jason Slade in a trap. Because Pride Sr., John Pride, the girl's father, works for the CIA, and so he's orchestrating the fake selling of the fake trigger in order to steal the real money from Jason Slade, and then he gets in trouble in selling a thing that is not available to generic Arab villain. Right?
It's either that, or there's that scene where the baddies are driving this big truck that might have the detonator in it, and
I thought that was filled with the money because they're moving the boxes.
Oh, it had the money. Okay, so that's what it was. Okay, and so when they throw the grenade and the guys dive, and somebody drives off with the
CIA. That's the CIA stealing his money.
That's his money.
Because he was moving the money in order to pay. Oh man.
Okay. I thought it was the detonator. Okay, so
see, that's just it. Yeah. Because I don't think the trigger, and that literally, I had to watch it twice last night because I was like, wait a minute, the plot of this isn't there.
Yeah. No.
The whole MacGuffin doesn't exist.
Oh, that makes sense. One of the funny things I know, I think you're right. I mean, because you're right. Like the movie, really, the whole point of the movie is to develop a baddie as a really bad baddie, and then, like you said, establish that everybody else is good and they can do really great martial arts, so that we get a very nice action sequence at the end. And in the meantime, we get these really great fight scenes in between, and it's almost like the plot is however the plot can get us from fight scene to fight scene. I mean,
you also have to establish that the bad guy is a great fighter as well. Like
exactly.
He's got his own establishing his skills.
Exactly. He's beating people up too. I mean, the Donna Jason one. So I watched the riff tracks of this version a little while ago, and
how was that?
What the funniest thing is that very opening sequence where Donna Jason is doing a news report and some woman is heckling her. And
Yes.
we find out that the woman is mad because Donna Jason exposed her father as a bad senator, done some bad stuff and killed his career. So she attacks Donna Jason with
With
a
a
knife,
knife.
right? And they're like, well, that's funny. That's it. Just woman attacks, daughter of a senator attacks a reporter with a knife, and that's all that's going to happen. It's not like all over the news. Can you imagine in today's? I mean, that would be
Yeah.
like all over Twitter for like
Yes.
months.
Yeah.
But that's just it's. But really, it
It's
wasn't
just to
there.
establish everybody's skills.
Exactly.
It
It's
has
just to
nothing to
show.
do with anything else.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit of character development because what she says to the lady is, just because he's your father doesn't mean he's a good person. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh, I see. She's talking about herself.
Exactly. Well, and I would say the father stuff was kind of cringy because, and I think in 1992 that this concept was much more prevalent, and now we're kind of getting away. We're understanding how this concept is toxic now, but this idea that it doesn't matter how good or bad your parents are, you need a relationship with them, and
Yes.
and and it doesn't matter
Yeah.
how comfortable you feel with that. You need to. So even the sensei, even Sifu was like, no, you got to go talk to your father. He's your father, and it's like,
Yes.
and,
Yeah,
and
that was interesting. It did. There was a moment where he was saying that. I was like, she doesn't have to, though.
no, right, and that whole thing where like she kind of gets ambushed, where Cynthia Rothrock,
Yes.
she's like, "Come have dinner with me," and she goes, and then the dad's there, and she's like, "Well, okay, I don't feel comfortable
She
with
tries
this."
to walk out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think nowadays, it's still a thing now, right? There's still this concept, I think, from some people that like, oh, it's your family, you should, have the connection or whatever. But there are enough people now that say, no, you set boundaries, you are who you are. I think it's something that like older generations can't have trouble with, the idea of
Yes.
family members going no contact and those kinds of things. But I think watching it with modern eyes, it's like, wow, that's not really nice that they're doing all of that to her.
Yeah, it was a little bit crazy.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, again, Donna Jason, her character. I mean, there's so many little scenes in this, and I don't. I'll bring up a couple. I'll bring up one off the top of my head that I think about. But I don't know if you had some in your notes as well. But there's that
Oh my
one
God.
where.
I have 3 pages of notes. It
Okay,
was crazy.
okay, perfect. Okay, excellent. I mean, one that you may have had in your notes was when she's sitting in the hammock and she's
Yes.
meditating, and then she
Yes,
gets a
it's
phone call.
another yes, it's another establishing her skills
Yeah,
in which she's sitting in a hammock balancing a pole, meditating, and while she's meditating, we see her remembering her training with her Sifu.
yeah,
What?
yes.
Yes, and then the phone call. Go ahead,
Right.
because that part.
It's great. She takes the stick that she's holding, she pops the receiver up in the air and catches it, answers the call, and then when she's done with the call, she takes the stick and leans it over the phone and rolls or slides the receiver down so it lands there. It's just like this little thing, this little like martial arts thing where he's just like, no, this is what we're gonna do. This is what I mean. When the two sisters when Cynthia Rothrock gets picked up at the airport by Jason, and Rothrock's like, I want to drive, and she's like, oh, you do, and they do this like sequence where they're just kind of juggling the keys back and forth
Yeah,
to
kung
see if we get
fu
them
for the keys.
right. Yes, yeah,
It's okay,
yeah,
it's fine.
yeah.
Yeah, why wouldn't we throw the when she goes to see her seafood, it's one of the lines my brothers and I used to say to each other. We watch this over and over and over again. One of the lines be where she goes to meet the Sifu, who, by the way, is played by an actor who is a kung fu teacher, and that is his school.
Yes,
By the way, this movie made for, I don't know, maybe $19.63,
right.
um,
Exactly,
because there's 3 to 4 places, and all of them seem to be owned by everyone in the movie.
right.
Um,
Yes,
but where he goes, have you been practicing your kung fu? And she goes, yes, Sifu. And he goes, good, good, and drops the lid to his teapot, and then she has to like kick it up with it. We used to say that to each other all the time, like, have you been practicing your kung fu? Good, good. Like, it's
yeah,
so weird. The delivery is just
yeah,
weird, and I love it.
yeah. Well, what was the character? The one who's like the friend, Mickey, right? They're
Oh, Mickey, yeah, the young kid in the kung fu school. Why
right.
is he there? Who knows?
No, he's got a crush on Donna Jason. He keeps wanting to go on dates with her. She's not interested. And unfortunately, Chuck Jeffries is there, so now she's got a thing
I
for
mean,
him.
why would you want Mickey if you could have Chuck Jeffries? Like that
Exactly.
dude, that I love Chuck Jeffries. Have for a long time. He's
Yeah,
now like full out stunt coordinator. He's
yeah,
still working. He was Blade whenever Wesley Snipes was, too busy Wesley Snipesing. So like he was Blade a lot.
yeah.
He doubled him in all those movies. I think the second half of the third movie is just all Chuck Jeffries, honestly.
Wow.
Um,
Oh, that makes
but
sense with the third movie in particular, right? Because yeah,
yes, there was a lot happening on that
right.
one.
Yes.
But yeah, he's so charming and fun in this. The bit where he shows up to her house and after she hangs up the phone with the pole, why we don't know,
Right.
just to establish her skill with the pole. Um, then he sarcastically claps behind her, and then they have a brief discussion, and then he jumps over the hammock to leave.
Yeah.
Why? No reason. Because
Right,
he can't.
right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, because the thing with Chuck Jeffries that I like about this movie is that a lot of movies played on the fact that he resembled Eddie Murphy. And it was like,
Yeah.
and I think he did that as well. I think he did that to get roles, is that he would, kind of do the laugh in some of the movies and stuff like that. But this movie's like, no, you are a top notch martial artist. You're going to have your own character arc in this. You're going to be developed. He goes to the gym where he trained and learned. It's almost like that kind of the duality between Donna Jason going to her sensei or her
Yep.
sifu and him going to his coach.
His boxing coach learns a quick lesson.
It was, and so he gets his own arc, and it's nice to see, someone like you said, he's mostly like, fight choreographer or stuntman for bigger names and stuff like that. For him to kind of be able to have his own thing.
I will also tell you, just as a side, like in this era, to have a movie that not only has 2 female leads, but then also has like a black man also in the leads.
Yes.
It was rare and also exceptional, and it's not treated as different or strange. It's just part of this movie, and it's great.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, I saw an interview that Michael Jai White did with Vlad TV, where he said that a producer once said to him, "I wish there was a white you." And that would have been at least 10 years after this, So if that's what Michael Jai White was going, and he still goes through it. I mean, I think it's why he makes a lot of his movies by himself, where he kind of, produces them on his own.
Side note, if you haven't, everyone listening, if you haven't watched Black Dynamite, go find Black Dynamite.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes. Yeah. Like I know New York Times have been having people do their top 10 movies of the first, 25 years of, of whatever, Black Dynamite is for direct to video movies. Black Dynamite is my number one for the 2000s.
So it's made by a man who understands everything about the black martial arts boom in the blaxploitation late 70s, early 80s era. Yeah. And then made a spoof of them.
Yes.
It's so good.
It is. It's so perfect. I haven't watched it in a while. It's one of those ones that was so good when my friends and I watched it. We immediately watched it again with the audio commentary, so we could find out what Michael Jai White what his thoughts were when he was doing things, which makes it even better. But it was like we have a movie that's that good. You watch it again immediately after.
Immediately. Yep.
Yeah. It's so great. And so So I mean, Chuck. I mean, another one we think of is Billy Blanks, who he starred in a few movies, but really he's like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to do this Tai Bo thing, and because I can't get the roles that I want, and so.
Well, and he's still, by the way, I still do Tai Bo videos because he's still releasing them. He shoots them in his garage and just puts them on YouTube.
Yeah.
And if you want a quick, fun cardio workout with him in his garage and a bunch of his lady friends, it is excellent. I love Billy Blanks.
Yeah.
And you can watch a couple of speeches that he's done. He very much has said, like, when I first want to put out a Tai Bo video, they were telling me, well, but white ladies in the Midwest won't work out to this. And he was like, well, all right, we'll see. And so kind of had to like self-finance one of them. And guess what? He said his biggest audience is now white ladies in the Midwest.
Yes. Yeah.
Which and them and me, one biracial lady in the Midwest. His YouTube videos are great.
Yeah.
And so this is a dude who the fortitude it takes to hear no after no after no, and to number one, not give up, and then to number two, create your own niche and then live in it happily. I cannot imagine. You know what I mean? And I think Michael Jai White has done that. I think Wesley Snipes did that. I think Billy Blanks did that. There's a lot of examples. It's so like, oh, you're telling me no one wants what I'm able to do. I'm going to go ahead and create it and show you that people want it.
Yeah, make the market. I mean, I think, I was talking with, I think it was Scott Murphy from All 90s Action when I had him on, we were talking about the Seagal movie. But, this idea that Hollywood is woke, right? That it's like, it's so liberal, all this stuff. And it's like, no, it's, and a lot of times you have these racist people at the top who use what the audience wants to shield their racism, as opposed to saying like, no, we want more Michael Jai White movies. Or we're back in the 90s. We would have wanted a Chuck Jeffries or more Billy Blanks, just like we would have wanted more Donna Jason or more, or, and even like, Don the Dragon Wilson. I mean, it was like a big deal when PM Entertainment made the first Ring of Fire movie that was like based off of Romeo and Juliet, that like when they were casting for this movie that was, Don the Dragon Wilson was going to have this whole family of Asian martial artists that were going to be part, on the Romeo side of the Romeo and Juliet. They said
Mhm.
that the lines were around the corner because all of these Asian actors who were used to just being
Knew who
like,
we were. Yep.
henchmen or whatever, they were like, oh, I can actually get a role in this
Yep.
movie. And
Yep.
we missed out on a lot because of that. I think it's a shame. I think,
Yes.
like in seeing Chuck Jeffries here, seeing Donna Jason here, even now Rothrock is a little different because she was on the PM podcast and she talked about she had agents who were like trying to get the next big thing for her, and she was
Mhm.
turning down stuff. And so she was maybe
Wow.
getting the parts and just wasn't taking them. But I still think there's also a little thing there where it was like, if we have a choice between her and Gary Daniels, maybe, and then
Yep.
later it was definitely when it was Seagal and Van Damme going down to the DTV
Yeah,
world, then
yeah.
it was really like, oh, well, we're going to take one of those two over anybody else. But I think we're lucky that we have the movies we have. We're lucky that we, like in Honor and Glory, it's unfortunate that from an acting standpoint, like the dialogue is kind of all over the place and the plot's all over the place. But
Yes.
to your point, having these actors here like this, and I think maybe that this is an area where it would have been nice for the Marvels to be more successful, because even if maybe, I would have wanted another Ms. Marvel TV show and a standalone Captain Marvel movie, the fact that you have three diverse women playing the leads in a movie, you want something like that to succeed. It's almost like, I don't know how to say it. It's like, you don't want to be critical of the movie because then you feel like you're one of these bros that are, this sort of white nationalist bro thing that's doing that.
It's the thing of like, and it's been said over and over again. So this is not, I wouldn't even know who to attribute it to because I feel like it's been said and said and said. A minority of whatever, whatever type of minority, an underrepresented group. If they have one movie, they suddenly represent every single person from that underrepresented movie, and they must succeed.
Right.
If they don't, no one ever wants a movie from that group again.
Yeah.
And it's like, but the privilege of mediocrity, that's kind of the summary of it, is that a generic white dude can make an average movie and they're like, yeah, fine, we'll make a dozen other mediocre movies with generic white dudes. Whereas if you were like an Asian or I think of Billy Eichner's Bros, the LGBTQ kind of rom-com that came out, or any of those, like you make that and it doesn't do as well, or it does fine. You know what? It's mediocre. It does fine. But then suddenly everyone, oh no one wants this. We can't make these anymore. And we're doing the privilege of mediocrity is something everyone should get to have in the film industry.
Right. It's funny. The comedian Jen Kirkman made a joke about how Andy Cohen, that like almost like this idea that like gay men have, especially white gay men have reached this point where they can be mediocre, just like straight. It's like almost like a like you talk about the privilege of mediocrity, like how it's like this great thing that Andy Cohen is able to exist because he's like this, that relentlessly mediocre kind of person, and like everybody needs an Andy Cohen.
And it's great.
Yeah.
Everyone should be allowed to have that.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, Marvel's came out. I loved it, but some people were like, it's fine. Yeah. And okay, great.
Exactly.
It's fine.
Yes. Yeah, it
Let's
could
make
just be a
some other
space
movies
romp.
like this. But instead they're like, well, it was only fine. We're not making any. Clearly no one wants to see it. Well, no, that's not true. Plenty of people want to see it.
Yes. Well, yeah, if the movie makes over $200 million, enough people wanted to see it.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing I think with Catwoman that I always... I think is lost in the conversation about Catwoman, though I try to bring it up as much as possible, is that Halle Berry did Catwoman in part because Storm really didn't get the kind of parts that Storm should have had in the X-Men movies. And she looked at Catwoman and said, I don't know if a black woman's going to get this kind of role again. And everybody was telling her, don't do Catwoman. It's not a good movie. It's not going to be good for you. It's not, and I love the fact that when she got her Razzie for that movie, she took the Oscar from for Monsters Ball with her when she accepted the award. And so it's like, yes, I can say Catwoman was not a good movie. I can say that there's a lot of things about that movie I didn't like and I wish it was better, but I get why she made
Sharon
it.
Stone was having a good time being bad. Benjamin Bratt looked great. Halle Berry did a fine job in that costume. Yeah. There's a lot to enjoy in that movie.
And
the plot of like a makeup mogul, bypassing security or safety issues to just get the product out. Like, there's a lot there.
Yeah, and I think I think the redemption I think for Halle Berry is that she gets to play that part in John Wick, and I think it's the third
Yes.
movie, and I think
Yeah,
it would
with
be
the
nice
dogs.
if that
Ooh,
yeah, and I
that
guess
was good.
she also gets a little bit maybe in Days of Future Past, right? She gets a
She
stronger
did,
part
and that
there.
was good. I
Yeah,
I hope, and I know we had the, oh boy, Alexandra Shipp. Boy, that took a bit.
yeah.
Playing Storm in the next class, first class,
Oh yes.
the young X-Men.
Oh yes. Like what was it the Apocalypse? Yeah.
And that's fine, but I do hope that Storm gets her due because that character is great, and
Yeah.
X-Men 97 certainly has understood what to do with her.
Yeah.
So I really hope that, and it would be really nice. And I don't know what they're gonna do with Doomsday and Secret Wars and all that jazz, but it would be really nice to see Halle Berry get her due.
Yes.
You know what
Exactly.
I mean? So I don't know.
Well, yeah, because when I was talking with Freddie Young about the comic book movies, one of the things that he brought up was that Storm marries Black Panther, and it would have been interesting. Everybody was talking about like was Beyonce going to play Storm in Wakanda Forever, but he said,
Ugh.
what if you'd had a very young Storm in Wakanda Forever, and then you've got the son of T'Challa, and you're setting it up that they're going to
Yes.
get married down the road. So then you still use Halle Berry in these Avengers movies, and she kind of gets. I mean, I think the one thing too I would like for Halle Berry is that the same way that Wesley Snipes and Jennifer Garner
Yes.
got closure on their characters in Deadpool and
Yes.
Wolverine, I
Yes.
think she deserves that as well. I think she
Yes.
should get. I remember I was watching a movie about cosplayers, and there's a woman from Texas who's a huge fan of Storm, and she was all excited to see the first X-Men movie, and then she goes and there's that scene where Bruce Davison turns into water, and
Yeah.
she runs away, and she said Storm would never run away like that. That's not who I understand Storm to be, and that's
No,
what
she's
prompted her
always
to.
been the leader. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what prompted her to make her own Storm movie. She got the mohawk. She got the gray Storm mohawk, and she got together with some people who did, and she made her own cosplay movie.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and partly because she wanted Storm to have the story that she felt Storm should have, and I think one of the things that's hurt Storm the most is I think out of all the characters that were kind of left aside in the Fox X-Men when that product was sold off, and then Feige started developing the MCU. I think Storm is the one who hurt the most, but I also think just Chris Claremont's X-Men, a lot of the really strong female characters that came in Marvel came under Chris Claremont. He created a lot because he had this mindset of it whenever he created a new character, can this character be a woman? And so then they were all kind of exiled on Fox for so long, and and so then when Feige's developing the MCU, the other thing was Isaac Perlmutter. We found out right that he used Elektra as his excuse for not wanting to have female-led movies in the MCU.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a shame. I guess going back to this movie here, Godfrey Ho is not saying like, oh, American audiences aren't going to want to watch a movie with two women in the lead, and everything that
No,
Godfrey.
he's just like, these are the leads of this movie.
Yeah, and I mean
They
everything.
happen to be women. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. And he was someone who was extremely conscious of what Americans thought about movies. I mean, that's why there's Garfield phones in his movies. It's like,
It's why the Pepsi machine, you can read it in one scene, but then they realize, oh wait, we don't have Pepsi permission.
Right,
Cover it with
exactly.
black tape in the next scene.
Exactly. And I think I do think it is one of those things where it's a shame that it has to be, that it was this movie in 1992, and that there wasn't like a big blockbuster in 1992 that had these actors in it, or a similar cast in it.
There's always this talk. The Expendables, when the first one came out, right? And let's just talk about the first one, had this unique idea of, well, let's take all these old heroes and bring them back together for one kind of last hurrah, and see what they would be doing. And I love that idea. I thought that was good. I think it got off the rails. But there had been talk for some time of like, well, who would you put in the female version? And then it was going to happen, and then wasn't going to happen. I think it starts with Cynthia Rothrock, and then you go other places. Pam Grier, and so I feel like that still exists, and boy, I'd love to see that done well. Lucy Lawless.
Yeah. Oh, Lucy Lawless for sure. Yeah. Because I think that was a big thing. I mean, one of the things about this movie that I think is also important, having female leads, is nobody's ever a damsel in distress.
No.
I mean, the closest thing is the dad needs to be rescued, right? And
Yes. And again, because their budget was $19.63, he doesn't even get like beat up makeup. He just has to hold one of his eyes closed instead of, in a regular movie, the makeup would show that his eyes is swelling shut. No, he just has to hold it closed the whole time.
Yeah.
I love it.
The one thing I did appreciate, again, with the slow budget is when they catch the dad and they were going to set him on fire.
Oh, yes.
The gas can barely has any gas in it as he's
Oh,
dripping it around, which I was like,
yeah.
okay, thank God. I don't need, even if it probably wasn't gas, even if it was probably water or whatever, I don't even want to think about gasoline being anywhere near this set. So I'm glad that.
Yes. Because everything would go. Yeah, all of that is flammable.
Exactly. But yeah, it's, there's so many funny lines, I think, and so many funny moments that are kind of just there's that scene where they're trying to show how bad Slade is, and he's firing this old guy who's been there for like 25 years, Williams. Of course, they just call him Williams, and then he meets with his dad, and his dad's like, why'd you fire Williams? Williams has been with us forever. He's like, listen, he's an old man. He doesn't know what he's doing, and all this stuff. And it's like, it's just like this little funny aside that, in an 85-minute movie, I don't know how much we needed it, and
correct,
but it's just so goofy, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that sequence. There's, oh God, the scene where Tracy sneaks up on her dad. He's wearing a robe over a suit because I'm sure they were going to shoot another scene immediately afterwards. I read that Cynthia Rothrock's scenes, they shot all of those in a week or two because she was in between other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Great. The delivery of some of the insane lines. Slade, every time he talks, is some nonsense.
Right.
When Tracy's on the stakeout in the car and talking to herself, to establish plot, and she literally says to herself, oh yeah, well, this is the life of an FBI.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Of an FBI?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Great.
Right. Yes.
Great. Love it.
Right.
The character of Silk, generic pimp who is skilled at martial arts because everyone is.
Right.
When he comes out with his lady friend and goes, so what's it gonna be? Europe, Mexico, the Caribbean, as he slaps each brochure. That's another line my brothers and I used to do to each other all the time. Oh my God, the delivery of that, just nonsense. This movie is such a joy. It feels like a Kevin Smith movie in the best way, in that it feels like a dude's making it with all of his friends.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Where it's, wait, what's the plot? Doesn't matter. Get out there, have a good time. Got it.
Right. Because it seemed like the scenes, like even for the actors, because I think the biggest thing, I'm sure if we asked anybody in this movie, they would probably tell us like, yeah, we did one take on the dramatic scenes.
Yes.
And it's funny because I know like Scott Adkins, he always talks about that because that's a way to kind of, he's insistent that he's a better actor than he's shown in his movies, because they always tell him, well, we can either do another take of that, or we're going to do, that means less time on the fight scenes. And he's like, okay, I want the fight scenes to be better. But to be honest, I don't care how good of an actor Scott Adkins is.
No, I'm not going to a Scott Adkins movie to see him act.
Right.
Sorry, Scott Adkins. I apologize. I'm sure you're very good.
Right.
I'm going to watch you kick people.
Yes, because if I'm going to watch, yes, I'm sure he's a better actor than I am, right? When you say action, he's going to do a better job than me. But like when I want to see like acting, it's like, well, I can go see a De Niro movie from the 70s and say, okay, that's going to do the trick for me, or whatever,
I like that qualifier you put on there.
Right.
Not a recent one.
Right, exactly. No, yeah, not he's definitely mailing those in now, but
Sure.
But it's like with these movies, I think even these, it's like, I'm sure they probably look back at them and go, oh boy, we look so silly here, or the way we delivered that line looks silly, or whatever it is. But it's like, I hope that they watch the fight scenes and are proud of those and say, we did a great job on those.
There's one more line that I love when Jake Armstrong goes back to tell, Chuck Jeffries comes back to tell Jason Slade that he quits as his bodyguard because he's been made aware of how terrible he is. And he's like, I just came back to tell you I quit. He's like, that's fine. I don't need you anyway. I hired this guy, Hideo. And Hideo's like, if you ever come here again, I kill you. All right, fine, buddy. And Chuck Jeffries just goes, all right, fine. Y'all have a bad day.
Yes.
I was like, oh, it's brilliant.
Yes. I that was what I thought about. I laughed out loud when it's funny, like I knew that line was coming, and I still laughed out loud when I saw it again. This recent watching. I love that one. I love when Hideo is going to get the tape. This is one that Ty from Comeuppance, when I was first watching this movie, he's like he thought this was the one that was going to make me lose it, but he comes into the house and he knocks over Mickey, and he's like, I want the tape. And he's like, what tape? What do you mean? And he just goes, tape. Yes.
Tape.
Yes. Oh, it's so good. I mean, the other thing too, of course, is like he sends the guy in to find the tape, and it's like, it's not like it's hidden anywhere. It's just like this, blank tape that says JVC on it. So he finds it right away.
Oh man, the amount of tapes I had that said JVC laying around.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah, I was trying to think. I mean, because this movie has so many moments. I actually on my Cynthia Rothrock list that I have on my on Letterboxd. This is number 4 for me. This is my number 4 of her movies, which puts it above all ones like Righting Wrongs and some of the Hong Kong ones that I know people are big fans of. But I just think with the martial arts in this. And I think that when the movie's bad, it's a fun bad, which I think helps
It's
it.
a fun bad. I think this movie in no way thinks it's good. I think this movie is just perfectly happy to exist in its own.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, no, we're not trying to be good. We're just here to have a good time. And I will always appreciate that.
Yeah, I think Godfrey Ho, he's listed as Godfrey Hall on this when he directs it, but Godfrey Ho, he had a mindset of he was one of the early purveyors in the DTV world of just sort of putting stuff into video stores and selling to that market directly and putting things on the putting things in the market that he thought would sell. And I don't know. I would be interested to see like what 1992 tapes of this look like, because again, it's mostly the ones you see now. It's just mostly Rothrock on the cover, which I appreciate. Them wanting to sell it that way. But I wonder if they were selling it as like a Twin Dragons kind of thing, or a trio with Chuck Jeffries, and also Robin Shou as well. Because I mean, that scene at the very end where
that's the guy who comes in with an Hong Kong audience built in.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, I love that. I mean, because Chuck Jeffries in the end fight scene, Chuck Jeffries is fighting his old security goons who stayed behind to work with John Miller, while Robin Shou is fighting Hideo, and then the other the two Pride sisters are fighting against John Miller. But when you get that moment where the three of them, because Chuck Jeffries isn't with them when they walk in, but you get the three of them. I mean, we're just talking about these comic book movies with the Avengers and stuff like this. I mean, one of the things I always love about a good Marvel movie is when you get this
hero moment.
Yeah, they have that team up moment, right? Where it's like, like Thor Ragnarok is one that didn't exactly work for me as much, but I love the end where it's Hulk, Thor, and Valkyrie teaming up, and I got that feeling here with these four. Like I was like, oh, I want to see these four team up, and the way he does at the very end, where they all kind of work together to beat John Miller, as opposed to it being like one person having to defeat him. It's more like, no, it doesn't need one of us to be able to defeat him. Why can't all four of us team up and defeat him? What's wrong with that?
I love that. I thought that was great. I also enjoyed because we don't get a ton of background on Robin Shou's character of Lee or on Hideo, but certainly when Hideo meets Lee there at the end, he goes, I bet you thought you'd never see me again. And Lee's like, yes, it's been a while since Hong Kong, or we have unfinished business. And I was like, wait a minute, these characters know each other? Where's that movie?
Exactly. I know. Can you imagine? I mean, it's a shame that that Godfrey Hall's just kind of spitting this stuff out there like it's like we should know, and there is a movie there, the two of them fighting each other, that didn't ever happen. That he just he wrote it in his head. One of the writers groups that I'm in, a woman was saying that like you should, whenever you create characters, you should write a whole background of them that you don't use in the movie. And I could see Godfrey Ho saying like, oh, well, these two characters fought each other in Hong Kong, and he may have mapped out this whole thing in his head for them that we don't get to see. We just get to see them fight, which was a great fight scene.
I wouldn't be surprised if those two actors actually had like a movie in Hong Kong together where they did fight, and they were just like, let's just bring this in, for ourselves and see if anyone notices. It wouldn't surprise me. I don't know if it happened or not, but it certainly seems like something that's possible.
That's a really great point. I didn't even think of that. There was maybe like kind of an inside joke kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's perfect. Because I mean, again, we're what I guess it's 3 years removed from him coming into play Liu Kang in the Mortal Kombat movie. So we get to see him on the big screen only 3 years after that, which is kind of crazy.
So good as Liu Kang, by the way. And Liu Lin is fine, but boy, Robin Shou is my Liu Kang.
Yes. Yeah. Now, I completely agree. I love, I mean, the fact that we get him in this movie is just such a treat. Even though he's really only in it to participate in fight scenes, right? He's not, he doesn't do anything else. But it's such
he takes, what's her name? They go out to dinner. And I kind of liked, I was like, is this platonic? Are they flirting? Honestly, I don't care. I'm going to think of them as just really good friends.
Right.
And they go to dinner in Hong Kong, and then when he pops by in America, he just gets in her car. He finds her and gets in her car. Okay.
Right.
And is like, yeah, I'm here to take you to dinner again.
Right.
Charming.
Yes.
Love it. After we beat up these guys, because I have to establish my skills.
Well, because that's great too, right? She's on the stakeout, like you said, she was kind of talking to herself as a way to uh,
Yeah, in the life of an FBI.
right, and she's got and one piece of product placement that Godfrey Ho probably didn't realize he needed to look out for was the San Francisco 49ers hat that
Yes.
he didn't. Of course, there's also all the video games at the end that he also doesn't black out. I wonder if
Yes.
Pepsi just seemed to be like when I wonder if there's just somebody on set who just said to him like, Pepsi, they're really litigious. You might want to be careful
Yeah,
with
you
that.
might want to cover that. He was like, fine, get some duct tape. And they're like, well, it's in a previous scene. He's like, I don't care.
Right, right, exactly. Yes, but yeah, I love that.
Yes, the 49ers hat seems like such a choice because it just seems so obvious that I wondered I was like, is she from San Francisco? Is this just because this movie is very much in DC?
Right.
So that felt weird.
Yeah, I wonder too. Because you know what it would have been is that they would have been one of the more famous. They would have been one of the more famous teams at that time. And
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Washington. Oh no, you know what it is? Actually, I didn't even think of this because Washington at that time was really good too. They were winning Super Bowls, but I think what it was is that Godfrey Ho would have known San Francisco just from being, he probably spent time in Chinatown there and in that area. I'm
That
wondering
makes
if that's what it is that he would have, or maybe he even had family there and they were 49ers fans.
Well, that's why I was like, well, is Cynthia Rothrock a 49ers fan? Is the
Yeah,
director a 49ers fan? Is the costumer a 49ers?
yeah,
It's just so obvious that it begs the question.
right, exactly. Yeah, no, it was perfect product placement there. I tell, yeah, I did a quick collaboration look, and it doesn't look like Robin Shou and Richard Yuen, who played Hideo, did anything other than this movie. So,
Okay, well,
I mean, they may have still come up together. Maybe I don't know.
possibly, yeah.
Yeah. It's again, it's just one of those throwaway things that happens in this movie that's just kind of there. But we're there for it because the fight scene's so great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a joy to watch. Again, at no point does it pretend to be a good movie. It just exists as it is, and everyone in it is having a good time.
Yeah.
It's it's very, very silly and very fun, and the fight sequences are pretty good for 80s. All these people are very skilled, and it's a good time.
And I think with things like Tubi, where you've got so many options
Which is
nowadays.
where I watched it. Yep.
Yeah, same here. I did it on Tubi. It's to know for sure you've got something like this that you can put on, and I don't even think there's really nothing in this movie that would be bad for I say a mixed audience, like people who don't necessarily watch movies like this. There's no sexual assaults, which I think is
Yeah, there's
important.
no cursing.
Yeah.
There's no. Yeah, it's just. I think that's kind of why my brothers and I probably liked it so much was that it's accessible.
Yeah, it's something you could watch with anybody, and I don't think there's anything that's really overly. The only thing I think that would be a difficult watch is the part where Donna Jason's being forced to have a relationship with her father. That's probably the only thing that could be an issue. Other than that, I think everything else in this movie is kind of just like yeah, I mean, even like the like you said, they didn't really have the money for any kind of like major torture scenes, so it's just a couple of people getting beaten up here or there, but there's no real like actual like torture. And like even when Silk, when he gets killed, he doesn't really get killed in a way that we see him get killed. He gets
No, he gets thrown into some cardboard boxes.
right, that's it, and then cut to the next scene. And so I think that's another piece of this that really makes it fun is that anybody can watch this. There's nothing in it that's going to really hurt people's sensibilities.
Yeah, and if it functions as your gateway drug into looking for other movies by all of these actors, air quotes actors, all of these martial artists, great.
Yeah, it works perfect. Well, yeah. Well, as we're wrapping up, Jeanette, anything else about this movie that you wanted to mention?
Oh, I don't think so. I think we covered everything that I had in my notes. Let me just double check. Boy, I took a lot of notes because I basically went. It felt like chapters,
Yes.
So I just kind of wrote down by each chapter. I like the weighted arm rings
Yes.
that Jason Slade uses to kind of, work out in. I thought that was fun. I don't recall seeing those. I enjoyed Joyce doing tricep dips.
Yes.
You see a lot of workout montages in martial arts movies. I don't know that I've seen tricep dips get the love they deserve, so I appreciated that. Fun tricep dips. Mickey, I enjoyed Mickey all throughout the movie where he's yelling at her, "Can I take you out to dinner?" She's like, "No, I'm not interested."
Yeah.
What about tomorrow? Or no, I'm busy tonight. And he goes, what about tomorrow? What about the day after tomorrow? What about the day after the day after tomorrow? It's like, okay, that's it could be creepy, but played as charming and fun. So I appreciate it. Yeah, the fake Arab, probably not necessary. We've
No.
talked about fake Arabs in the 80s before, so not sure that was necessary. The wisdom from the boxing coach, love that.
Yes.
So great. He's got a lot to learn. Yeah, just top to bottom, it's very fun. I enjoyed this so much.
Yeah, no, I agree. You're right. The Arab part of it too. I think that was again Godfrey Ho looking at American movies and saying like, what are the things that they put in these movies? And the Arab traitor or whatever, these kind of things. And it's kind of like, yeah, we've seen enough of that. We don't, that's
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't need that.
No, that didn't work. But I think to your point about Mickey, I think it's like when I watch was it Pretty in Pink and Ducky, I'm like, boy, that's like everything that a PSA about stalking tells you is bad.
Yeah.
Like the phone calls and all stuff. Mickey doesn't do any of that. Mickey's just he wants to impress her, and that's why he's spying on it's not spying on her, spying on the baddies because he wants to impress her. But he's not calling her all the time. He's not bothering her. He's not in fact, actually, he's the opposite. Like when he shows up and he sees her there with Chuck Jeffries, he's like, he just leaves right away instead of saying, hey, I got this tape of all this stuff. I mean, I guess part of it is probably because he thinks Chuck Jeffries is still working with John Slade, but yeah, I think it's another thing that's good too. Is that it's she politely says no, and he he tries, but he's trying to impress her really, as opposed to trying to he's not like stalking her or anything like that or being too pushy.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, he hears the no. He's still trying to be, because it's very much implied that he's much younger than her.
Yes.
Which, is he? I don't know. I can't tell.
Right, exactly. That's for sure. Yeah. So, anyway, thank you for coming on, Jeanette. This movie was a lot of fun. It was really fun to talk about this, and of course, the comic book conversations are always great too, because I think this is this was a pivotal year, I think, for this subgenre. And
agreed.
Yeah,
in a good way. I think the future is bright.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, exactly. Well, before we wrap, anything that you wanted to plug?
No, I'm trying to maintain my site over there at the Mundane Adventures of a Fangirl at jward.blogspot.com. jwardadventures.blogspot.com. See, it's been so long, I don't remember that. Working on it, just keeping the reviews short. If you follow me on Instagram, that's where you're going to find them the most. Yeah. And yeah, that's about it.
Well, I'm going to quickly plug your 2 episodes of the LAMBcast. I mean, yes.
Oh yes, sorry.
I was on 778, but also 777, the one on Superman. I think, especially if you've seen that. I mean, one thing that I like about the LAMBcast that Richard sets up the spoiler wall, so you can listen to the first half and then come back later. But I think if you've seen Superman, that conversation is really fantastic. So people should check that out as well.
Yeah, it was. I really appreciate. Sometimes you see a movie and you're not quite sure how you feel about it, and then to have a conversation with a bunch of other people who are, fans of movies.
Yeah,
I think it's a good time. Yeah. I enjoy it.
Well, yeah, because what was fun about the Fantastic Four was that we all kind of agreed, and you, me, and Richard agreed, and we just kind of were just all talking about what we agreed on with it, which is sometimes that's like a fun one. And I think with the Superman one, everybody had kind of different backgrounds and different ideas on how they wanted to talk about that movie, which I thought was cool too.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you again for coming on, Jeanette. I think this is another fun conversation, and thank you everybody for listening. We'll be back soon. Bye, everyone.